Chapter 820. Now, the Lone Star Sword belongs to you. Lin Xian took a deep breath and took the square treasure box. Then, he slowly opened it. An ancient longsword lay quietly in the treasure box, emitting a cold light. It was like a star in the sky, shining in solitude. Lin Xian reached out and grabbed the hilt. He immediately felt a cold sharpness and a crazy sword intent. He knew that the sword had gained sentience. This was an instinctive resistance. With a light snort, Lin Xian also had a sword intent in his body, which he quickly injected into the Lone Star Sword. Boom! The two forces collided and were in a stalemate. However, in the next moment, the dragon sword's spirit erupted and pounced into the Lone Star Sword like an angry dragon. Buzz! The Lone Star Sword trembled as if it had come alive. It emitted a terrifying light, and the sharpness was several times stronger than before. So powerful! Lin Xian praised. Holding the Lone Star Sword, he felt like he controlled the world. It was a mysterious feeling, as if he was one with the sword. It was intoxicating. The auctioneer beside him was even more shocked. It was really shocking to be able to subdue a half-Earth-rank treasure so quickly. One had to know that he could only activate it, and could not subdue it at all. Lin Xian did not put away the Lone Star Sword. Instead, he took out the black scabbard and slowly inserted it. Then, his spiritual power turned into threads and he carried the ancient sword on his back. Goodbye! Lin Xian turned and walked out. Outside the backstage, countless people gathered. Their eyes were shining with a terrifying light. They were waiting for Lin Xian to come out. He's here! Someone whispered. Suddenly, everyone looked forward. They saw a young man in a blue shirt slowly walking out of the passage. On his back, there was an ancient sword. He was like a divine sword that was unstoppable. Lone Star Sword! Countless people exclaimed. They did not hide the passion in their eyes. In the distance, the surrounding martial artists were even more shocked. They did not expect Lin Xian to carry the Lone Star Sword on his back without hiding it at all. How confident must he be to dare to do so? Humph, at least you know your place. You know that you can't keep your treasured sword, so you might as well not hide it anymore. Someone sneered. Brat, hand over the sword and I won't kill you. The Lone Star Sword isn't something you can take. Cold gazes fell on Lin Xian as if they wanted to pierce through him. Humph! Lin Xian snorted coldly and swept his gaze across the area. His gaze was like a sharp sword that streaked across the air. Ding ding 111. Many people retreated, their faces pale. Their eyes were filled with shock. The other party had actually forced them to retreat with a single glance. The other people's expressions changed as well. Their opponent's strength was beyond their imagination. However, Hong Wuji, the maniac's sword highness, and the others simply let out hollow laughs. The gaze was not enough to scare them off. Everyone, fighting is prohibited in the auction house. The golden-robed elder walked out and said with a grave expression. Although the Wanxiang auction house had a huge influence in the city, it was inevitable that these people would go crazy when faced with a half-Earth rank artifact. Therefore, it was better to warn them in advance. Elder Jean, don't worry, we won't fight here. Some martial artists expressed their stance. Brat, let's go! A man with a goatee said coldly. Then, the crowd opened up a path for them. Let's go! Lin Xian called out to Dongfang Xiong and Yufei and walked out. Humph, he's courting death. He actually dares to go out. If I were him, I'd hide here for the rest of my life. Yeah, in this situation, he'll die if he goes out. A group of people discussed among themselves. They felt that Lin Xian was too stupid and that he would be courting death if he went out. Yufei sneered when he heard the discussion. If these people knew how many people were waiting for them outside, would they cry? Ta ta ta! Lin Xian's footsteps were steady as he walked towards the exit. The people behind him became nervous. Many of them secretly circulated their spiritual energy and pulled out their artifacts, preparing to attack. They decided that as long as Lin Xian stepped out of the door, they would take action. This was a crucial moment. Whoever could get the sword first, and leave safely would have a meteoric rise. The space froze and the atmosphere was tense. Everyone's eyes flickered as they stared at Lin Xian. In the next moment, Lin Xian finally stepped out of the auction house's door. Attack! Countless people shouted as their spiritual energy erupted and surged forward. Brother Xian! The light gradually grew brighter as orderly shouts came from outside. It was as if an army was marching, and it was shocking. Those voices condensed into a force that blasted in all directions. Pfft! Dozens of figures spat out blood and flew out. Bang, bang, bang! These people crashed into the nearby buildings and made a low sound. Those martial artists who did not attack were also affected, and their faces turned pale. What? Everyone was stunned when they saw the situation in front of them. In front, 50 young men looked at Lin Xian respectfully. Their auras were powerful, and they all had the aura of a supremacy. Supremacies, 50 supremacies. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air in disbelief. There were 50 supremacies waiting to protect Lin Xian. No wonder the other party wasn't afraid. He had such a trump card. Even the pupils of powerful warriors like Hong Wuji and maniac sword supremacy constricted. Although they were powerful, they couldn't handle 50 supremacies at the same time. Moreover, there was an expert like Lin Xian among them. For a moment, the scene became incomparably silent. Snatch it! Why aren't you snatching it? Yu Fei sneered as he looked around. Weren't they all arrogant before? Why were they all cowering now? He was furious. Just now at the auction house, these people acted high and mighty as if they were going to eat them. That kind of atmosphere made him extremely unhappy. So now, he wanted to vent his anger. Bringing 10 supremacies with him, Yu Fei came to the injured martial artists on the ground. Aren't you guys awesome? How dare you snatch Brother Xian's sword? You're courting death. What, they dare to snatch Brother Xian's things? The disciples of the Dragon Sword Pavilion became anxious when they heard this. All of them looked at those people with fire in their eyes. Bang! One of them sent a martial artist flying with a kick, causing him to spit out a large mouthful of blood. Yu Fei arrived in front of the goatee martial artist, raised his palm, and ruthlessly slapped him a few times. Pa pa pa! Very quickly, that martial artist turned into a pig's head. None of the martial artists who made a move were spared. They were all beaten up. The others also did not dare to make a move. What a joke, who could beat 50 supremacies? Let's go together. I don't believe that we can't beat them. Someone was secretly instigating. Humph! Lin Xian's gaze focused, he raised his hand and slashed out a ray of sword chi, instantly sending the person hiding in the dark flying. Whoever wants to make a move, I'll accompany you to the end. His gaze looked around with an endless domineering aura. No one made a move. Many of the weaker martial artists retreated. However, not everyone had such rationality. Many of them were blinded by the treasures. Wait, who told you to leave? A cold snort sounded. Chapter 821. Wait, who allowed you to leave? A cold voice sounded. Lin Xian stopped in his tracks and turned around. Whoosh! Wherever he looked, the crowd immediately dispersed. No one dared to stand. However, 3 silhouettes remained unmoved and continued to stand there. 2 men and 1 woman. They were extraordinarily handsome and had powerful auras. It's them, the disciples of the Yan family! Someone exclaimed. They did not expect the disciples of the Yan family to attack. Lin Xian also frowned. He had seen these 3 people before. Not long ago, the 3 of them had swaggered into the auction hall right in front of him. At that time, he knew that they were disciples of the Yan family. However, he did not expect them to attack now. The youth on the left had an evil smile and a cynical look. He stared at Lin Xian and said with a smile, Since you have obtained the treasured sword, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Why don't you take it out and let everyone see? The cold-looking youth on the right snorted. Why are you wasting your breath on him? Just kill him. But he only has 1 head. Are you going to kill him or am I going to kill him? Yan Chong laughed. That's easy. We'll attack at the same time. Whoever kills him first will get the Lone Star's sword, Yanling said. That's a good idea. I like it. Yanchong nodded. However, his storage ring will be mine. I guess there should be many good things inside. Sure. Yanling did not refute. The two of them conversed as if Lin Xian was prey waiting to be slaughtered at any time. In their opinion, only the disciples of the Yan family were worthy of possessing a peerless treasure like the Lone Star Sword. No one else was worthy of it. Hearing their words, the disciples of the Dragon Sword Pavilion trembled with anger. Their eyes were filled with anger. Brother Xian, let me kill them! Wang Li gritted his teeth and said. No need. I'll do it myself. Lin Xian stopped them and said in a deep voice. His eyes flashed with a cold light and killing intent. He had spent 1 billion spirit stones to buy the Lone Star Sword. Whoever dared to have any ideas about it would only have one outcome. That was death. Lin Xian's body surged with killing intent, like a killing sword, surging towards the sky. However, this did not frighten the Yan clan's disciples. Instead, it aroused their disdain. Brat, I'll let you know that you don't deserve to have the Lone Star Sword. The evil-looking young man, Yanchong, laughed nastily. Only the genius disciples of our Yan clan are worthy of it. The cold young man's eyes carried a trace of disdain. The two of them were like two bolts of lightning, rushing over quickly. Whoosh! The evil-looking young man attacked. His body was like a ghost. Wherever he passed, grayish-white petals would fall. Those flower petals spun about, slicing through space, incomparably sharp. On the other side, the cold-faced youth attacked as well. A piercing chill spread out and filled the entire space. Accompanying it was a terrifying, murderous aura. The two of them flew through the air, creating a terrifying aura as they charged forward. It was like a mountain flood or a tsunami. A god of death had descended. The entire earth was shaking, and many buildings in the distance were destroyed beyond recognition by the overflowing aura. How terrifying! Everyone was shocked. The two of them were like gods, emotionless and terrifying. It was chilling. Both of them were top young geniuses. Individually, they could crush a group of people. Now that they were together, they were definitely the most terrifying force. In the distance, everyone was trembling. Many of them broke out in cold sweat, and their clothes were soaked. This terrifying aura was not something they could contend against. The sharp and terrifying aura was still spreading out. Everyone's hearts were trembling more and more. They could not help but worry for Lin Xian. I'm afraid that Lin Xian is in danger. It's impossible for him to resist the joint attack of two peerless geniuses. Why do the two of them need to attack? I think one of them can kill him. As expected, the Lone Star Sword is not that easy to obtain. Not only does it require money, but it also requires strength to be able to keep it. The surrounding martial artists who wanted to snatch the sword sneered. In their opinion, Lin Xian was only relying on the strength of the team behind him. If it was a one-on-one battle, any one of them would be able to kill him. However, Lin Xian was stupid enough to try to fight the Yan family's genius alone. He was courting death. At this moment, no one was optimistic about Lin Xian's chances. Feeling the cold aura in the air, Lin Xian's expression was cold. The sword intent on his body became even more dignified. It was like a peerless divine sword that was slowly unsheathed. Die! A cold voice rang out. Then, a terrifying sword chi pierced through the void and slashed towards Lin Xian. The sword chi was incomparably dazzling. It was like a silver snake dancing. The sword light swam and tore through the void in an instant. Humph, kid, die! On the other side, the evil youth, Yanchong, also slashed towards Lin Xian with a petal-like sword chi. The two terrifying sword chis complemented each other. It was vast and terrifying. Destroy! Lin Xian's eyes flickered. The sword intent on his body suddenly exploded, and a formless wave of chi spread out in all directions. At this moment, a huge sword chi pierced through the clouds, connecting the heaven and earth. This sword was too powerful. It was as if it could split the heaven and earth. That terrifying murderous aura caused everyone to tremble. The evil youth, Yan Chong, and the cold-looking youth, Yan Ling, were equally shocked. They looked at the scene in disbelief. Lin Xian's strength was beyond their imagination. He might even be stronger than them. This is impossible! The two of them screamed in their hearts. However, in the next moment, Lin Xian turned into a sword radiance and rushed towards the two of them. In an instant, the dazzling sword chi in the air was slashed apart. It was like a piece of cloth that was mercilessly torn apart. An even more terrifying blood-red sword chi swept across and slashed at the cold-looking youth. Ah! A blood-curdling scream was heard. Blood splattered and the entire space was dyed red. Everyone's heart trembled. They looked over and saw the cold-looking youth's body split into two halves. What was even more strange was that the blood that gushed out quickly condensed into a blood-red sword in the air. The blood-red sword was demonic, and carried with it a monstrous murderous aura. What? He's dead! Everyone was shocked. They did not expect the arrogant and powerful genius of the Yan family to be killed in one move. A wave of fear spread through the crowd. Those martial artists who were eyeing the Lone Star sword were even more horrified. Many of them trembled and gave up on the idea of snatching the sword. They did not think that they were stronger than the cold-looking youth, Yan Ling. Since Lin Xian could kill Yan Ling in one move, killing them would be as easy as slaughtering dogs. Although a half-Earth class treasure sword was good, one needed to be alive to enjoy it. In an instant, half of the people thought of retreating. They did not dare to be enemies with Lin Xian. Impossible! This is impossible! The evil youth, Yan Chong, was shocked. His eyes were filled with disbelief. The person that he regarded as an ant had killed his comrade in one move. This scene was too shocking. He could not accept it. After killing Yan Ling in one move, Lin Xian was expressionless. He turned his gaze and stared at Yan Chong. What are you trying to do? The evil youth, Yan Chong, was shrouded by Lin Xian's gaze. His body trembled as fear rose from the depths of his heart. Chapter 822. Kid, I'm warning you. I'm a disciple of the Yan family. If you dare to touch me, you're dead. Yan Chong had lost the courage to attack. He could only use his family's identity to suppress Lin Xian. However, in front of others, that insufferably arrogant identity of a disciple of the Yan family was nothing in front of Lin Xian. A disciple of the Yan family? Lin Xian sneered. I've already killed a disciple of the Yan family. Do you think the Yan family will reconcile with me? Since I've already offended them, what's the difference between killing one or two? Lin Xian's face was cold. He had no intention of letting the other party go. Feeling Lin Xian's gaze and the cold murderous aura, the evil youth's heart sank. He knew that no matter what, Lin Xian would not let him go. At this moment, his heart was filled with regret. Why did he have to be the first one to intercept Lin Xian? If they had waited for a moment for someone else to make a move, they would have known how terrifying Lin Xian was. Perhaps they would not have made a move. But now, it was too late. At this thought, the evil youth roared. Once again, a powerful aura erupted from his body. Endless spiritual chi surged out like a torrential sea. It's not that easy to kill me! His black hair fluttered in the wind and he looked extremely evil. Countless grayish-white petals spun around him rapidly, forming a demonic sword chi. You were able to succeed just now because we were careless. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to kill Yan Ling in one move. The evil youth calmed down, and his eyes shone with a frightening light. Indeed, the two of them had not taken Lin Xian seriously. Therefore, although their attacks were terrifying, they were only ordinary attacks. In his opinion, they must have underestimated their opponent. Now that he had summoned his martial soul, he would definitely be able to kill Lin Xian in one blow. At this thought, confidence returned to his eyes and he smiled evilly. This time, I won't give you a chance. I'll go all out and kill you in one move. Is that so? I'm looking forward to it. Lin Xian stood with his hands behind his back like a sword sage. He did not use the Lone Star sword on his back. Instead, he waved his arm and controlled the blood-red longsword in the sky. "You're courting death!" the evil young man roared. His black hair fluttered in the wind as it transformed into a terrifying sword sheath that quickly slashed towards Lin Xian. Behind him, a grayish-white snake-shaped longsword was formed, emitting a terrifying aura. "Die, brat!" This time, he unleashed his martial soul with all his might. His combat strength was several times stronger than before. However, the other party dared to look down on him, using only his arm to control the blood sword in the sky. This kind of casual attitude made him go crazy. "Just you wait, you will pay the price for your insolence." The demonic youth, Yan Chong, had a ferocious expression on his face. He swore that he would definitely behead Lin Xian with this strike. Boom! The entire void trembled as countless blood-red auras spread out from the originally clear sky, forming a vast sea of blood. The sea of blood surged, releasing rumbling sounds. That aura made one's heart tremble. In the middle of the sea of blood, there was a blood-red long sword. It was demonic and scarlet, and it emitted a monstrous killing aura. Under the guidance of Lin Xian's arm, the terrifying blood-red killing sword turned into a bolt of lightning and quickly slashed downwards. In the next instant, it collided with the evil young man, Yan Chong. Rumble! A dull and terrifying sound reverberated in all directions as waves of violent energy poured down. There were countless blood-red swords she mixed within the energy. It was like a blood-red river, flowing in all directions. It was terrifying. Yan Chong was completely surrounded by the blood-red sword chi. Looking at the terrifying scene in the sky, the crowd trembled and gasped. It was too terrifying and shocking. They did not expect Lin Xian's casual strike to create such a terrifying aura. They wondered if Yan Chong could withstand it. In the distance, Hong Wuji, Honorable Maniac's sword, and the rest frowned. Every time Lin Xian attacked, he would become stronger. It was as though his combat strength was limitless. This situation made them look grave and uneasy. It seemed that it would not be easy to snatch the Lone Star sword from Lin Xian. The crowd had different expressions. Just then, the blood-red sword chi in the sky gradually disappeared. The crowd held their breaths and looked up. They wanted to know if Yan Chong had withstood the attack. However, in the next instant, they were all stunned. That was because the sky became clear again. However, Yan Chong was nowhere to be seen. It was as though he had evaporated and disappeared into thin air. Did he dodge it? Someone was puzzled and looked around. Yes, he must have dodged it. Below, the last disciple of the Yan family, the beautiful lady, was holding the corner of her clothes nervously. She looked uneasy and kept comforting herself. However, after a long time, Yan Chang's figure was still nowhere to be seen. Was he killed? Not even the bones are left? Finally, someone voiced out such a question. Like a plague, this idea quickly spread among the crowd and was finally accepted. Countless people stared blankly at the sky, speechless. Their hearts were numb. The young man in front of them was too mysterious and too powerful. He had killed the genius of the Yan family with just a casual strike. In the distance, the last girl in purple from the Yan family screamed. Her body trembled and her face was full of shock. You're dead. You killed the genius of the Yan family. No one can save you. The girl in purple screamed. The genius of the Yan family? Lin Xian sneered disdainfully. How can such a person be called a genius? In my opinion, he's worse than trash. The crowd was silent and silently agreed with Lin Xian's words. Perhaps in the eyes of the crowd, Yan Chong and Yan Chong were peerless geniuses. However, in the eyes of Lin Xian, they were worthless. Otherwise, how could a true peerless genius be killed in a single strike? Lin Xian's lips curled into a cold smile as he slowly walked forward. What do you want? The girl in purple was so scared that her face turned pale. She no longer had her previous arrogance. The reason why they were so arrogant before was because the three of them were powerful and had extraordinary statuses. They could crush everything. Now, their strength and statuses were worthless in the eyes of Lin Xian. They had lost the right to be arrogant. If you dare come over, I'll fight it out with you. The girl in purple had a sinister look on her face. She quickly threw out several weapons. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 flying swords flew out. Each of them was a foot long, and emitted a cold light. They quickly pierced through the void and slashed towards Lin Xian. Ka ka ka! Lin Xian waved his sleeve and kept the 3 short blue swords. Then, he walked forward without changing his pace. Save me! Jean Bo, save me! The girl in purple screamed. In the next moment, a sigh was heard. Suddenly, a golden light shone and quickly condensed into a figure. It was an old man. He was the auctioneer who had hosted the auction. The old man in gold looked at Lin Xian and sighed. Then, he said in a deep voice, Young friend, can you give me some face and let my niece go? Chapter 823. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. It was rumored that young Master Lingyun was behind the Wenxiang auction. No one believed it at first, but now it seemed like it was most likely true. Otherwise, a neutral force like the Wenxiang auction would not interfere in the underworld's conflicts. Lin Xian's face darkened. He did not expect the auction to interfere. However, since he had made up his mind to kill, he would not change it. I have no grudges with the Wenxiang auction. I hope you won't interfere. As for the Yan family disciples, they were so arrogant when they wanted to kill me. Do you think I'll let them go? Lin Xian shook his head. The murderous intent in his eyes intensified. If that's the case, don't blame me for being rude. The elder in the golden robe snorted. The Wenxiang auction was so prestigious that no one dared to provoke them. However, there was someone who dared to not give them face today. To the elder in the golden robe, Lin Xian was too arrogant. However, he had forgotten that it was the 3 Yan family disciples who were arrogant and wanted to kill Lin Xian. They were the ones who wanted to kill him and steal his treasures. Their actions were despicable. However, they were not as strong and did not succeed. If it was anyone else, they would have been killed by the Yan family disciples. Seeing that Lin Xian did not give him face, the elder in the golden robe snorted. He quickly waved his hand and prepared to attack. Streaks of golden ripples shone like dragons as they circled around the golden-robed elder at high speed. In the next moment, he punched out. A terrifying force surged out, accompanied by 9 golden dragons. On the other hand, Lin Xian sneered as he executed his earth-rank movement technique, and he transformed into a string of afterimages that instantly vanished. At the same time, he waved his fingers and shot out the 3 flying swords he had collected earlier. The 9 golden dragons missed and tore the void apart. The 3 flying swords were like lightning, instantly hitting the purple lady behind the elder in the golden robe. The purple lady could only let out a scream before she was pierced by the 3 flying swords and pinned to the building behind her. Kid, you're courting death! The elder in the golden robe was trembling with anger. He had already expressed his stance and wanted to protect the purple lady. However, the purple lady died in front of him after a while. Face slapping, this was a blatant slap to the face. The golden-robed old man's eyes were gloomy, and his entire body emitted a terrifying aura. To be honest, he didn't care about the woman in purple's life or death. After all, they were merely allies with the Yan clan. It wasn't to the point where they had to risk their lives for her. However, as an elder of the Wenxiang auction house, he could not tolerate the arrogant attitude of the other party. He did not put him in his eyes at all. He could ignore the purple-clothed girl's death, but he couldn't allow her to slap his face in public. Brat, you are very arrogant. No one has ever dared to go against the Wenxiang auction. The golden-robed old man's voice was cold and gloomy, emitting a terrifying murderous aura. Behind him, countless Wenxiang auction house martial artists quickly gathered. Competing in numbers? Dong Fangxing sneered and strode out. His entire being was like an iron tower, causing the earth to tremble. Boom! The 50 members of the Dragon Sword Pavilion behind Lin Xian also took a step forward, and a terrifying aura rose from each of them. 50 powerful auras gathered together, suppressing everything. This power was too shocking, and it immediately intimidated the people of the Wenxiang auction house. The golden-robed old man's eyes were gloomy, and his face was terrifyingly dark. Although the other party didn't have as many people as they did, every one of them was an elite genius that could suppress anyone. If a fight really broke out, the Wanxiang auction house would definitely suffer great losses. He was only an elder of the Wanxiang auction house, and he couldn't bear the consequences. Originally, he wanted to use his power to suppress the other party, but he didn't expect that the other party would easily resolve the situation, and even counterattack. This feeling of grievance almost made the golden-robed old man vomit blood. For a moment, the golden-robed old man and the Wanxiang auction house martial artists behind him were in a dilemma, and they were all stunned. The surrounding martial artists were shocked. How many years had it been since anyone dared to go against the Wanxiang auction house? Even the Huang and Ling clans of Wind-Seeking City didn't dare to be so presumptuous. But now, a young man who wasn't even 20 years old had done such a shocking thing, and even successfully intimidated the Wanxiang auction house. This was too shocking. Looking at the sullen face of the other party, Lin Xian said coldly, "I spent 1 billion spiritual stones to buy the Lone Star Sword, so it's naturally mine. But the 3 disciples of the Yen clan wanted to kill me and steal the Lone Star Sword without spending a single cent. How can there be such a cheap thing in this world? The disciples of the 3 great clans actually did such a shady business of killing and robbing. How despicable! Killing and robbing. You're not strong enough, but you were killed instead. You deserve to die," Lin Xian said coldly. "And your Wanxiang auction house doesn't care about the twists and turns, and doesn't care about right or wrong. You actually cover up for the martial artists who killed and robbed. Such actions are despicable. Now you're angry out of humiliation, and want to attack the auctioneer. I don't know what the Wanxiang auction house's principles are, but aren't you afraid that the world will be disappointed?" Lin Xian's every word was heartbreaking, and his voice was like thunder, resounding in all directions. Today's matter was too much, and he felt angry just thinking about it. He was the one who bought the item, but the seller and the martial artist who killed and robbed him teamed up to bully him. Such shameless actions could only be solved by killing and spilling blood. Hearing this, the crowd fell silent, because what Lin Xian said was the truth, and there was no reason to refute it. The old man in the golden robe and the martial artist behind him were so angry that they trembled. Their faces darkened, and they wanted to vomit blood. Shameful, too shameful! They were being lectured by a junior, but they couldn't fight back. This feeling made them go crazy. "Elder Jean, what are you waiting for? Back off." Suddenly, a delicate voice was heard. Then, the void rippled, and a beautiful figure appeared. It was a beautiful woman in a palace dress, but she looked a little cold. She glanced at Elder Jean and said coldly, "What are you waiting for? Back off." Elder Jean, who was originally arrogant, trembled when he saw that gaze, and he quickly lowered his head. "I'll take my men and leave now." Then, he waved his hand and led the group of martial artists back into the Wanxiang auction house. Seeing that Elder Jean and the rest had left, the beautiful woman in the palace dress smiled at Lin Xian. "Elder Jean and the rest were in the wrong. I hope you can forgive them." Lin Xian nodded slightly. Judging from Elder Jean and the rest's attitude, the beautiful woman in the palace dress was definitely a high-ranking member of the auction house. Moreover, from the aura that flowed out of her body, her strength was definitely far beyond Elder Jin's. Lin Xian didn't want to go against the Wanxiang auction house, he just wanted an explanation. Now that the Wanxiang auction house had apologized, he naturally wouldn't pursue the matter. Then, the woman in the palace dress left, and the entire Wanxiang auction house also left, no longer caring about the outside world. "Brother Xian, what do we do now?" Wang Li asked. Chapter 824. "Let's return to the courtyard first," Lin Xian said. Although the Lone Star Sword was already in his hands, he didn't know who bought the Phoenix Blood Scarlet Gold. He had to find out. Now that the auction had just ended, it was a good time to find out. Moreover, those people hadn't gone far. Once they decided to find out, they could make a move. Otherwise, when those people left, it would be very difficult to find out. Originally, Lin Xian had the Lone Star Sword, so he would be in more danger if he stayed in Wind-Seeking City for one more day. However, for the Phoenix Blood Scarlet Gold, he had no choice but to take such a risk. How about this, Dong Fang? You take your people and leave first. I'll stay here for a while and return to the academy when I have news. Brother Xian, we won't leave, Wang Li and the others said with a firm gaze. No, let's leave quickly. The Lone Star Sword's involvement is too great. Who knows what kind of terrifying person will appear in the future? It's too dangerous for you guys to stay here. Moreover, it's convenient for me to move alone. Even if I can't beat them, they can forget about keeping me here. Lin Xian had boundless confidence. He had the Earth Tear movement technique and the mysterious Jade platform. Even if the other party was strong, he could still leave calmly. After knowing Lin Xian's life-saving methods, these people agreed to return to the academy first. Yu Fei went out to scout for information, Lin Xian hid in Wind-Seeking City, and Dong Fengxiong and Wang Li brought 50 Dragon Sword Pavilion disciples back to the academy overnight. 50 venerables were indeed a powerful force. Even Lin Xian was very tempted, but this matter was too dangerous. The appearance of a peerless treasure like the Lone Star Sword would probably attract some terrifying warriors. If the Dragon Sword Pavilion disciples were injured in the battle, it would be a great loss to him. These people were all geniuses with extraordinary talent. At this moment, they hadn't fully matured, so he didn't want them to take the risk. Moreover, it was indeed much more convenient for him to move alone. Firstly, he had the Earth Tear movement technique. Even a third-layer venerable wouldn't be his match in terms of speed. Furthermore, he had the heaven-changing art, a unique concealment method. If he wanted to leave, very few people could stop him. As for the blood mark in his body, it had already been destroyed by the Dragon Sword's spirit. At night, Lin Xian sat cross-legged in the courtyard, silently cultivating. These few days there had been many battles. It could be said that it was very dangerous. The number of venerables he had killed in the past few days was more than the total number of venerables he had killed in the past few days. Although it was dangerous, the benefits were also great. His blood sword slaughter inheritance had successfully broken through to the second level. Now, it had reached the peak of the second level. It wouldn't take long for him to break through to the third level. This kind of breakthrough speed could be said to be shocking. One had to know that the blood sword slaughter inheritance was a king's inheritance, and its degree of rarity and difficulty was comparable to an earth-rank martial art. However, Lin Xian had almost reached the third level in such a short period of time. That cultivation speed was truly shocking. Of course, this was related to his battles. So many venerables' blood essence had been absorbed by the blood sword, which was why the blood sword's slaughter inheritance could break through so quickly. At this time, everyone had already left, and only Lin Xian was left in the courtyard. The night breeze was gentle, causing the leaves to rustle. The hazy moonlight sprinkled down, covering a layer of gauze. At this moment, outside the courtyard, a figure swiftly appeared like a ghost. It was a middle-aged man with a white face and no beard. At this moment, he was looking at the courtyard in front of him, and his eyes shone brightly. At the same time, Lin Xian, who was in the courtyard, suddenly opened his eyes. A sharp sword light lit up in his eyes. "Since you're here, why don't you come in?" Lin Xian said indifferently. Outside the courtyard, the middle-aged man with a white face and no beard looked surprised. Then, he laughed loudly and said, "Lin Gongzi is indeed a young genius. I admire you." Before his laughter died down, the middle-aged man had already turned into a ray of light and arrived in the courtyard. "Although I don't know who you are, I'm sure you're not here just to say a few words of praise, right?" Lin Xian said in a deep voice. "What's your purpose? Just say it." Lin Gongzi is indeed straightforward. Luo Qingqiu smiled and said, "Since that's the case, I'll say it directly. I wonder if Lin Gongzi is interested in joining our Wanxiang auction. Although today's matter was a misunderstanding, our Wanxiang auction sincerely invites you to join us. As long as you're willing, you can obtain a large amount of cultivation resources and a limitless future on the path of martial arts. Wenxiang auction? Lin Xian's eyes darkened, but his heart was filled with surprise. Although the courtyard he rented was not extremely secretive, it was still not easy for an ordinary person to find it. At least, the Huang and Lin clans had not found this place before. But now, in just half a day, the Wenxiang auction had already found out where he lived. This power was too shocking. The Wenxiang auction was indeed a dominating force in Wind-Seeking City. If such an opportunity was given to an ordinary person, they would definitely be overjoyed. But Lin Xian would not. He would not join any force. But he would not reject it immediately. At least, he had to find out more about the Wenxiang auction. The things you mentioned, I can have them myself. Why should I join the Wenxiang auction? After hearing Lin Xian's words, the middle-aged man laughed. His laughter was filled with great confidence. Lin Gongzi, you may not know this, but the Wenxiang auction is not only what you see on the surface. I can't tell you the details, but I can reveal a little to you. If you join us, you won't lose out. What you have now will be 10 times more than what you have now. This is a precious opportunity. I hope you won't miss it. Let me think about it, Lin Xian said calmly. If there's nothing else, please leave. I want to cultivate. Lin Xian's voice was very calm, but the rejection in his voice was very obvious. The middle-aged man's pupils shrank, revealing a look of disbelief. However, as an important person in the auction, he still had the ability to maintain his composure. Soon, the middle-aged man regained his composure. He said in a deep voice, "Now that you have a half-Earth ranked artifact, you must be in trouble. If you join us, I can guarantee that your troubles will disappear in an instant." It had to be said that this was a very tempting offer. After all, Lin Xian was facing a very dangerous situation. If he was not careful, he would lose his life. But now, the middle-aged man was offering to protect his safety. It was a direct hit to Lin Xian's weakness. If it was anyone else, they would have agreed immediately. But Lin Xian was still unmoved. He had his own plans, and he already had his own force. He would not join another force. Therefore, when he heard the tempting offer, he was expressionless. My answer is the same as before. Let me think about it. If I have an idea, I will look for you. Lin Xian's voice was calm. Chapter 825. Oh, young hero Lin, you have to think about it. After all, it's very dangerous to have a half-Earth rank artifact. Our Wenxiang auction doesn't want to see a genius like young hero Lin fall. Seeing that Lin Xian had rejected him twice, the middle-aged man's eyes turned gloomy, and his voice carried a hint of coldness. After saying that, he waved his sleeve and disappeared from the courtyard. The moonlight was still there and a gentle breeze was blowing. Only the sound of leaves rustling could be heard. Lin Xian closed his eyes and entered into a state of cultivation again. Compared to the quiet courtyard, Wind-Seeking City was not as quiet. The atmosphere in the city was tense and undercurrents were surging. Countless experts and families were secretly investigating, trying to find out more about Lin Xian. At the same time, many families joined forces and temporarily sealed off the entire Wind-Seeking City, intending to forcefully search the place. There was no other way. The temptation of a half-Earth rank artifact was too great. That kind of artifact was extremely rare. If one could obtain it, it would definitely increase one's strength by a few folds. The Huang family, Lin family, and other local families had the greatest advantage. They mobilized a large number of people to search the entire Wind-Seeking City. Other experts also mobilized people from all over the blood field and rushed into Wind-Seeking City. They all knew that Lin Xian had not left, and was still in Wind-Seeking City. At the same time, the Yan family received the news that their disciple had been killed in Wind-Seeking City. They were extremely exposed and quickly sent a team to capture the murderer. Of course, the Lone Star Sword was also their target. Countless undercurrents surged and the entire Wind-Seeking City became a terrifying and dangerous place. At the same time, another shocking incident occurred in Wind-Seeking City. A tall man with golden light shining all over his body stood in the air like a golden giant. His gaze was cold, and his cold voice spread out like thunder. Who is Lin Xian? Come out and die! How can we let a nameless kid take a peerless treasure like the Lone Star Sword? Don't think that killing a Yan family disciple is a big deal. In my opinion, you are still not qualified to take the Lone Star Sword. The voice was extremely arrogant and resounded through the sky like thunder. He did not put Lin Xian in his eyes at all. Lin Xian, hand over the Lone Star Sword and I'll spare your life. In the sky, a golden figure roared. His terrifying voice was like thunder, spreading in all directions. Everyone was shocked and raised their heads to look at the sky. Who is this person? How arrogant! Did he not know how powerful Lin Xian was? That's the powerful existence that killed the genius of the Yan clan. It's actually him, Golden Sword Huang Jinxing. Someone cried out in alarm. What? Gold Sword? Hearing this, many people sucked in a breath of cold air. No wonder he was so arrogant and dared to challenge Lin Xian. It was Huang Jinxing. Who is Huang Jinxing? Is it very powerful? Someone asked in confusion. Of course he's powerful. He's a second-level venerated realm cultivator, and he's said to be unrivaled among second-level venerated realm cultivators. He's extremely powerful. It's said that even ordinary third-level honorables might not be his match. What? So powerful! When those people heard this, their hearts trembled. An invincible second-level honorables who could contend against third-level honorables. Every piece of news was enough to show how powerful the figure in the sky was. He was definitely a very powerful opponent. Not only that, it said that he comprehended a metal-type sword soul. His attack power is extremely powerful and his battle prowess is heaven-defying. Someone said another shocking piece of news. It seems like Lin Xian is in danger this time. Someone sighed. Yeah, Huang Jinxing is really too powerful. He's much stronger than the 3 martial artists from the Yan clan. They're not even on the same level. I guess that Lin Xian definitely won't come out. After all, he might have already left after getting the Lone Star Sword. Who would be stupid enough to appear at this juncture? Although Huang Jinxing is powerful, he can't do anything if Lin Xian doesn't appear. In the sky, Huang Jinxing also knew this. He snorted and said disdainfully, I didn't expect the Lone Star Sword, a half-Earth class treasure, to fall into the hands of a coward. How sad! His voice was extremely arrogant. He didn't take Lin Xian seriously at all. The surrounding people sighed. Although the other party's words were harsh and he wanted to provoke Lin Xian into coming out, it didn't matter if he was insulted at this juncture as long as he could protect the Lone Star Sword. That was what most people thought. However, it wasn't Lin Xian's opinion. He looked at the sky and his eyes were filled with a strong murderous intent. In Lin Xian's life, regardless of whether his opponent was strong or not, he had never been weak. There was nothing to say about such an insult. Only by fighting and killing the other party could he prove himself. Moreover, as a martial artist, he wasn't afraid of a fight. In the next moment, Lin Xian carried the Lone Star Sword on his back and rushed into the sky in a flash. Buzz! The void rippled and he appeared in the sky. Lin Xian's appearance caused a huge commotion. Countless people looked up at the sky and were shocked. They didn't expect Lin Xian to really come out. Could it be that he was confident in defeating Huang Jinxing? You're Lin Xian? At that moment, Huang Jinxing also looked at the figure in the sky. You haven't even seen me and you're already clamoring to kill me. Don't you think you're too arrogant? Lin Xian's eyes were dark and his voice was cold. Lone Star Sword. It's really you. You're Lin Xian. Huang Jinxing didn't care about Lin Xian's cold gaze. Instead, he stared at the quaint long sword on his back. He laughed loudly and said, Kid, you really can't keep your cool. A mere provocation has led you out. All right, let me kill you with my own hands. You're not worthy of the Lone Star Sword. Hearing Huang Jinxing's arrogant words, Lin Xian also laughed. In other words, there's no grudge between us. You want to kill me because you want to take the Lone Star Sword for yourself? That's right. Do I need a reason to kill you? Huang Jinxing was extremely domineering. Killing someone like you is no different from stepping on an ant. If you want to live, I can give you a chance. Kneel down obediently and hand over the Lone Star Sword with both hands. From then on, you'll be my servant. I might spare your life. Servant? Kneel down? Ha ha. Lin Xian looked up to the sky and laughed. His black hair fluttered in the wind like a demon. In the next moment, his laughter suddenly stopped. A cold sword light shone from his eyes. Do you have any last words? Lin Xian's voice was cold. Hearing this, the crowd below was shocked. Huang Jinxing was extremely arrogant and domineering. He didn't take Lin Xian seriously at all. He didn't even need a reason to kill him. Lin Xian exceeded everyone's expectations. Not only did he offer himself, his arrogant attitude was even more domineering than Huang Jinxing's. Last words? Huang Jinxing was stunned. Then, he sneered disdainfully as if he had heard something funny. Chapter 826. You're the first person in Wind-Seeking City who dares to talk to me like that. I've decided not to kill you immediately. I'll torture you for 49 days and let you bleed to the last drop of blood in your body. I'll let you die in endless fear. Huang Jinxing revealed a sinister smile and stared at his opponent like a demon. In the next moment, his body shone with golden light, and countless rays of light turned into golden poisonous snakes that quickly rushed forward. The golden light emitted a strong killing intent as if it could pierce through everything. What a terrifying attack! That Lin Xian is probably in danger. He actually dared to anger Huang Jinxing. Someone sighed. Lin Xian's expression was cold as he raised his hand and used the vermilion bird seal. In the next moment, monstrous flames soared and swept through the 9 heavens. A flaming divine bird rushed out and pounced forward. The void trembled as countless divine flames jumped and wrapped around the golden light, melting it and burning it quickly. Eh? You can actually break my attack? You really have some skills. Huang Jinxing revealed a surprised expression. Interesting, but he still couldn't escape death. He snorted coldly as a shocking golden sword ray rushed out from his body. It quickly grew in the air and slashed toward Lin Xian. It was like a golden lightning that carried a violent and terrifying power. Lin Xian, on the other hand, focused his gaze and casually waved his palm in the air. Boom! The void fluctuated and quickly formed a huge blood-red palm that slapped toward the shocking golden sword Qi. A terrifying sound rang out as the two attacks collided in the void, bursting out a terrifying wave of energy. Huang Jinxing snorted coldly. His expression was gloomy as he couldn't take down his opponent in 2 moves. Therefore, he decided to take the 3rd move seriously and kill his opponent. Brat, I've played enough. Go to hell! Huang Jinxing sneered. The light outside his body shone even brighter like a sun that shone in all directions. Outside his body, a huge golden giant shadow appeared. It stood tall and roared at the sky. Boom! In the next moment, the golden giant was enraged and punched downward. That power was too violent, and the air was instantly blasted apart. The golden fist was like a divine stone from outer space, shining brightly. The terrifying energy was like a vast ocean, incomparably vast. It's over. Huang Jinxing is getting serious. This power is too terrifying. It can even injure a 3rd-level venerable. I'm afraid that Lin Xian won't be able to take it. Not necessarily. If the other party uses the Lone Star Sword, he might still be able to stand his ground. However, what shocked everyone even more was that Lin Xian stood in the air without any intention of using the Lone Star Sword. What is this guy doing? Does he really want to resist this move with his bare hands? Who knows? Perhaps he won't even have the chance to draw his sword under this heaven-shocking aura. Someone sneered. Huang Jinxing naturally saw this scene as well. He laughed disdainfully and said, I really don't know if you're an idiot or just overconfident. You actually didn't use the Lone Star Sword? If that's the case, then go to hell. At the end of his speech, the golden fist shone even brighter. It was like a sun crashing into the ground from the void. Huang Jinxing looked down at Lin Xian with disdain in his eyes. If the other party had used the Lone Star Sword, there might have been a chance for him to resist. However, it seemed that the other party was stupid and did not even use the Lone Star Sword. He was not interested in such an opponent at all. However, Lin Xian shook his head slightly. I don't need the Lone Star Sword to kill you. He let out a long roar, and the blood in his body surged. The spiritual power in his body circulated rapidly, and a terrifying power shot up into the sky. Lin Xian swung his fist and punched out. It was also a golden light that condensed into a golden fist that met the attack head-on. However, the difference between his fist and his opponent's was that his fist was made up of golden lightning. It was extremely masculine and filled with violent energy. What? Is he really going to fight with his bare hands? And he's going to fight with his fist? Is this guy crazy? Does he think that his physical body can resist the giant's shadow? Everyone exclaimed in disbelief. Huang Jinxing sneered disdainfully when he saw this. What an idiot. How dare he fight with his fist? I really don't understand how the Lone Star Sword ended up in the hands of an idiot like you. Lin Xian did not answer because the two fists had already collided. The scene was very strange. The golden giant's fist was as heavy as a mountain and crushed the void. On the other hand, it was a fist the size of an ordinary person. No matter how one looked at it, the two of them were not on the same level. To be honest, no one was optimistic about Lin Xian's chances. They all thought that he would turn into a pile of flesh and blood under this punch. However, in the next moment, the two fists collided with a terrifying sound. A blazing light flashed and swept in all directions. The entire space collapsed horribly. Rumble! A thunderous sound was heard in the void, and the sky was filled with violent light. Everyone looked up at the sky and were all dumbfounded. That was because in this shocking collision, the huge golden giant's shadow began to collapse. First, the mountain-like fist shattered with a boom, turning into countless rays of light that scattered in the void. Then, the entire arm began to disintegrate. In the end, the golden giant's shadow roared at the sky and let out a painful roar. He struggled with all his might to resist, but he was powerless. In the end, he could not escape the fate of collapsing. With just one punch, the golden giant's shadow collapsed and disappeared. In the void, Huang Jinxing kept retreating like a bolt of lightning. A stream of bright red blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. On the other hand, Lin Xian stood in the void like a king. Kill Lin Xian? Steal the Lone Star Sword? Lin Xian sneered. In his opinion, the other party was just a clown that was not worth mentioning. The crowd below was even more shocked. Countless people's hearts were beating wildly in disbelief. Lin Xian was too powerful. He could actually injure Huang Jinxing with one punch. No wonder he dared to come out. It turned out that he had the strength to fight against Huang Jinxing. Everyone's eyelids twitched. They realized that the reason Lin Xian came out was not because he was provoked or because he wanted to die, but because he had the strength to fight against the other party. He could even suppress the other party. Very well, you've successfully angered me. Huang Jinxing's face darkened. Next, I'll make sure you die a horrible death. Cut the crap. Since the moment you set your eyes on the Lone Star Sword, your fate has been sealed. Lin Xian's voice was icy cold. Brat, you're too arrogant. I admit that you have some strength, but you have no chance of winning against my martial spirit. My martial spirit is a metal elemental martial spirit. Its attack is extremely powerful and can even kill a third-layer martial highness. What do you have to compete with me? Huang Jinxing's expression was hideous. He let out a furious roar and quickly summoned his martial spirit. In the next instant, a long sword appeared in front of him. It was 10 feet long and entirely golden in color, emitting a terrifying aura. The crowd held their breaths as their hearts trembled. It was too terrifying. The aura alone was enough to slice their bodies and souls apart. Chapter 827. Platinum Longsword. Huang Jinxing's martial soul is terrifying. The sword is the king of weapons, and the metal element is one of the strongest offensive attributes. The combination of the two is extremely sharp. No wonder Huang Jinxing could kill a third-rank honorable martial artist. It seems like the rumors are true. Lin Xian is in danger. Lin Xian was strong, but he was still inferior to Huang Jinxing's platinum longsword martial soul. Looking at the terrifying platinum longsword in the sky, Lin Xian's lips curled into a smile and a look of disdain flashed across his eyes. Competing in offense? He sneered in his heart. What martial soul could compare to the great dragon sword soul? In terms of offense, if the great dragon sword soul claimed to be number one, no one would dare to claim to be number two. Looking at Huang Jinxing's arrogant face, Lin Xian said indifferently, "I'm curious. What will your expression be when the platinum longsword that you are so proud of breaks?" "Humph, stop bragging. You can't possibly withstand my martial soul." Huang Jinxing had absolute confidence. His martial soul had contributed a lot to him, and was extremely powerful. He did not believe that Lin Xian could withstand his martial soul's attack. Below, the crowd was shocked when they heard Lin Xian's words. How can the platinum longsword break? Even with the Lone Star sword, he can't do it. Bullsh*T, he must be Bullsh*Ting. How can he defeat his opponent's metal element martial soul? The crowd shook their heads in disbelief. However, in the next moment, they were stunned. A blood-red longsword appeared in Lin Xian's hand. It exuded a terrifying spiritual energy and a destructive aura. The terrifying aura was even more terrifying than Huang Jinxing's platinum longsword martial soul. This sword contained the inheritance of the blood-red killing sword and the power of the great dragon sword soul. It was extremely sharp. The two of them were too terrifying. The crowd below trembled. The strength of the two of them had surpassed that of an ordinary second-rank honorable martial artist. Die, brat! Huang Jinxing's face changed when he felt the terrifying aura from his opponent's blood sword. He was shocked and did not hesitate to attack. In the sky, the platinum longsword martial spirit waved, causing the clouds in the sky to collapse. It was as if the heavens and earth were being split apart. The scene was extremely terrifying. At the same time, Lin Xian also swung his blood-red sword and slashed out. The earth trembled and the blood sea surged. The entire wind-seeking city seemed to be shaking non-stop. The earth-shattering collision almost sent the entire city flying. The violent sword she connected the heavens and the earth, sweeping in all directions. After a long time, the world finally regained its tranquility. Everyone was shocked and raised their heads to look. In the sky, Huang Jinxing's hair was disheveled, and his body was covered in blood. In front of him, the platinum longsword martial spirit was dim, and there were even cracks on it. What? Huang Jinxing was defeated? Everyone exclaimed in disbelief. Could it be that Lin Xian was so strong that even the powerful Huang Jinxing was no match for him? Impossible! This is impossible! How could you possibly break my platinum longsword martial spirit? Huang Jinxing yelled madly, his face filled with disbelief. In the past, as long as he used his martial spirit, no matter how strong the enemy was, he could kill them. However, this time, the martial spirit attack that he was so proud of had failed and was almost shattered by his opponent. He could not accept it at that moment. Huang Jinxing's body was covered in wounds and his face was filled with disbelief. On the opposite side, Lin Xian held the sword of slaughter in his hand and walked toward him step by step. Previously, I was curious about your expression after being defeated. But now, it seems that it is indeed ugly. You! Huang Jinxing trembled with anger, but there was nothing he could do. He had no choice. He had already used his strongest martial spirit, but it did not hurt his opponent at all. This meant that his opponent's strength was completely above his. It seemed that he had miscalculated this time. I admit that you are very strong. I was wrong before. I don't want the Lone Star sword anymore. Hearing this, the crowd below was shocked. The arrogant Huang Jinxing had actually lowered his head and spoke in such a humble manner? Was this still the same Huang Jinxing who would kill anyone he disagreed with? It seemed that Lin Xian was indeed powerful to be able to subdue such a demon king. You don't want it anymore? Lin Xian laughed. What do you think this is? Playing house? You think you can just give it up like that? He shook his head with a cold smile. You fight whenever you want, kill whenever you want, and don't want it anymore. Have you considered my feelings? I have no grudge against you. We don't even know each other. However, as soon as you entered Windy City, you insulted me in front of everyone. Have you considered my dignity? When I appeared, you wanted to kill me without saying anything. You wanted to take the Lone Star Sword for yourself. Have you considered my feelings? If I wasn't stronger than you, I'm afraid I would have been killed by you. Now that you can't defeat me, you think you can escape unscathed by saying that you don't want it anymore? Is there anything so simple in this world? Lin Xian laughed coldly and looked at Huang Jinxing as if he was looking at an idiot. Then what do you want? Huang Jinxing clenched his teeth and said while holding his chest. I've said it before. Since the moment you set your eyes on the Lone Star Sword, your fate has been decided. There's only one outcome for you, and that's death. Hearing this, Huang Jinxing was stunned. A trace of mockery appeared in his eyes. I'm from the Golden Palace. How dare you touch me? The reason why he was so arrogant and looked down on everyone was that besides his powerful strength, he was also from the Golden Palace. The Golden Palace was a terrifying force and was very famous in the Blood Field. It was said that the Golden Palace controlled 18 huge cities and each city owner had the strength of a third heaven honorable martial artist. With such terrifying strength, no one dared to offend them. However, Lin Xian was unmoved. The Golden Palace? I've never heard of it. Even if I knew, so what? Since you've said your last words, prepare to die. He slowly raised his arm. At this moment, Huang Jinxing finally revealed a fearful expression. His opponent didn't care about his identity and was determined to kill him. You're dead. If you kill me, the Golden Palace won't let you go. Before he finished speaking, a blood sword soared into the sky. Huang Jinxing's head flew up and exploded into a bloody mist. He's dead? The people below were shocked and couldn't believe it. They didn't expect Lin Xian to be so decisive and kill him without any hesitation. What an arrogant young man. After knowing Huang Jinxing's identity, he still attacked mercilessly. How decisive! Many people exclaimed. If it were anyone else, they would have retreated long ago. However, Lin Xian didn't hesitate at all and killed him directly. No one could compare to his decisiveness. However, not everyone appreciated it. Many people sneered. Since he dared to kill Huang Jinxing, he was definitely going to die. Yes, the Golden Palace's strength is not to be underestimated. Moreover, Huang Jinxing didn't come alone this time. I think it won't be long before the Golden Palace's experts know about it. When that time comes, Lin Xian won't be able to survive. Lin Xian didn't have any concerns. His opponent was extremely arrogant and wanted to kill him to steal his treasures. If he didn't kill such a person, he wouldn't be a martial artist. Chapter 828. Moreover, so what if the Golden Palace was powerful? Lin Xian was not someone who was afraid of death. What was the purpose of practicing martial arts? Other than pursuing a longer lifespan and enjoying wealth and power, it was to be free and unfettered in the martial world. Being free and unrestrained was what Lin Xian yearned for. If he was timid and overcautious in everything he did, what was the point of practicing martial arts? In his opinion, one's martial arts strength was used to break free from all shackles. It was the most fundamental guarantee of being free and unfettered in the world. And he, too, was advancing step by step towards the goal of his dream. Lin Xian did not leave after killing Huang Jinxing. He heard the crowd's conversation and found out that there were some martial artists behind Huang Jinxing. He thought that they would come to seek revenge soon. Therefore, in order to not have any worries, he planned to get rid of them all at once. With a wave of his sleeve, Lin Xian put away the other party's storage ring. Then, the headless corpse exploded, forming a bloody mist that filled the sky. Under the guidance of Lin Xian's finger, spiritual qi and blood quickly rolled in the bloody mist, forming a pavilion in the air. The entire pavilion was red like blood jade. It was crystal clear and floated in the air. It was no different from a real palace. Transformation! When the crowd below saw this, they were shocked again. Martial artists of the three spirit realms would be able to use this kind of technique to transform. They could only use it in martial arts techniques. Only venerable ones could maintain the transformation for a long time. This was because only at this level could one freely control the spiritual qi between heaven and earth. However, ordinary venerable ones would not use this method casually because to maintain the transformation required a huge amount of spiritual qi and pure spiritual power. Although venerable ones could mobilize the spiritual qi of heaven and earth without limit, there was also a problem of conversion rate. That was the degree of utilization of spiritual qi. This problem was determined by the cultivation method. Almost none of the martial artists below the third heaven of the venerable realm dared to use this transformation technique during normal times, let alone when they were about to face a fierce battle. When Lin Xian heard the shock from below, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He had long since mastered this technique, but he was only using it now. Moreover, when he used this method, he did not have to worry about the conversion of spiritual energy like other martial artists. That was because the longevity incantation in his body could solve all these problems very well. His cultivation and transformation speed was definitely far superior to those of the same level. Even Lin Xian had yet to figure out what level of cultivation method the art of longevity was. In a flash, he walked toward the blood-colored palace and quickly entered it. The interior was no different from a real palace. Lin Xian slowly sat down, took out a cup of spirit wine from his storage ring, and slowly tasted it. Then, he rummaged through Huang Jinxing's ring of holding and sorted out his spoils of war. What is this Lin Xian doing? After killing Huang Jinxing, he's still not leaving. Could it be that he's not afraid of death? From the looks of it, could it be that he's waiting for the others from the Golden Palace to come? Someone was bewildered. Below, no one left. They were all watching silently. They wanted to know how Lin Xian was going to deal with the wrath of the Golden Palace. Not long after, the void trembled, and a long howl rolled over like the waves of the sea. Accompanying it was a monstrous and terrifying aura. The void fluctuated, and spiritual energy surged over like the waves of the sea. What's that? Countless people were shocked and looked up at the sky. At this moment, in the sky, countless black shadows were moving quickly like ghosts. They joined together and floated over like dark clouds. Demonic beasts! Someone exclaimed because they realized that the black shadows were huge iron-clawed eagles. On top of the iron-clawed eagles stood countless figures, each of them carrying a strong murderous aura. In an instant, the iron-clawed eagles filled the sky and arrived near the blood-colored palace. At the forefront was a goshawk that was dozens of feet long. Its feathers were like steel, shining with a metallic luster. On the back of the demonic beast was a bald martial artist. His eyes were fierce, and his aura was powerful. He quickly sensed his surroundings, and then his face turned ugly. Who dares to kill the disciples of the Golden Palace? Come out and die! His voice was loud and clear, like the roar of a ferocious beast. It spread clearly in all directions. The Golden Palace, the people from the Golden Palace are here! Countless people were shocked. They did not expect the other party to arrive so quickly. The void was silent, and no one answered the bald man's question. Humph, how dare you kill the disciples of the Golden Palace? Even if you run to the ends of the earth, you won't be able to escape death. The bald man sneered and stretched out his arm. Golden light flickered and formed a dragon that rushed down quickly. Dragon hand! In the next moment, a martial artist was surrounded by the golden dragon and carried into the sky. Speak, who killed the disciples of the Golden Palace? The bald man's face was ferocious as he stared at the innocent martial artist. The martial artist was just an ordinary spectator. His cultivation had not reached the honorable realm, and he could not speak in front of the powerful aura of an honorable realm martial artist. However, in the bald man's eyes, he was looking down on the Golden Palace and harboring a criminal. "If you don't speak, you'll die!" The bald man sneered and exerted force in his palm. Suddenly, the golden dragon roared and tore the innocent martial artist to pieces. Blood mist drifted, and the pungent smell of blood filled the air. Seeing this, the martial artists below felt their scalps go numb. They did not dare to stay any longer and fled into the distance. Demon! The people from the Golden Palace were demons. They did not need any reason to kill. As long as they were in a bad mood, they could kill at will. No one dared to stay any longer because they might die if they were not careful. However, the bald man was determined to find out who the culprit was. How could he let these people go? The golden dragon in his hand roared again and swooped down. In an instant, it brought up two martial artists. "I'll give you a chance. Tell me who the culprit is. If you don't speak, you'll die." One of them was shocked by the murderous aura and could not speak. The other shouted crazily, I'll speak! The culprit is Lin Xian. He's in the Blood Palace. I'm done. Can you let me go now?" The martial artist gasped for breath. "Lin Xian?" The bald man looked around and saw the Blood Palace not far away. Suddenly, his face turned ferocious. "Let you go? How is that possible? You saw the disciples of the Golden Palace being killed. You deserve to die." The bald man did not listen to reason. He exerted force in his palm and instantly crushed the two martial artists. Bloody and arrogant. These people did not listen to reason at all. There was only killing in their eyes. "Lin Xian, right? How dare you kill the people of the Golden Palace? I'll let you know what it means to live a life worse than death." The bald man looked at the Blood Palace and let out a sharp roar. "Lin Xian, come out and die!" The voice was terrifying. It turned into a physical attack and rushed forward. Chapter 829. The void trembled like boiling water. The terrifying sound waves were like roaring thunder as they rushed towards the blood-colored palace. Boom! There was a deep sound and the entire palace shook as if it was about to split open. However, in the next moment, the Crimson Palace quickly stabilized and emitted a crimson light. A crimson sword she quickly condensed and slashed forward. In an instant, the crimson sword she cut the sound waves in half. "You dared to resist?" The bald man's face turned gloomy. He was now sure that the person in the Crimson Palace was the murderer. "Rush in and bring the murderer out. I want to kill him, slice by slice." The bald man waved his hand. Immediately, countless goshawks behind him spread their wings and turned into streaks of black shadows that rushed forward. On the backs of the goshawks, there were martial artists with ferocious faces. Their bodies emitted a murderous aura. The long swords in their hands were bright as they slashed forward. In an instant, countless black shadows surrounded the Crimson Palace. However, in the next moment, a golden figure came from the palace. It was like a golden lightning bolt. Then, there was a sharp cry that pierced through heaven and earth. Soon, the goshawks were all trembling in fear as if they had encountered something terrifying. Some of the goshawks did not even dare to stay in the air and hurriedly landed on the ground. "What's going on? Damned beast, stop right there!" In an instant, all kinds of curses were heard and the entire sky was in chaos. Just as these people were panicking, two golden wings appeared in the void and spread out. The golden wings were hundreds of feet long. On the wings, every feather was crystal clear. They were like golden divine swords that flew out quickly. 108,000 swords. In the next moment, the sky was filled with dazzling golden sword radiance. It moved in all directions and quickly enveloped the martial artists of the Golden Palace. Suddenly, countless screams were heard. The goshawks and the martial artists on them were all attacked. Countless sword radiance flew and pierced through heaven and earth. The demonic beasts and the martial artists of the Golden Palace were staring at the ground as they trembled. blood flowed and dyed the sky red. Then, it was summoned by a strange power and entered the Crimson Palace. The entire Crimson Palace was crystal clear and looked demonic. Golden-feathered godly eagle! What a terrifying means! In the distance, the martial artists were shocked. They thought that the Golden Hall would kill Lin Xian mercilessly, but they didn't expect that Lin Xian would deal such a heavy blow to his opponent. In the void, the huge golden wings disappeared and turned into the figure of the golden-feathered divine eagle. The sky became clear again. However, the warriors of the Golden Palace were still trembling. None of them dared to charge forward. The bald man's pupils constricted as well. He was so angry that his entire body trembled. In just an instant, half of the people he had brought with him had been lost. This was something he could not accept. How dare you kill a member of the Golden Palace in front of us? I will let you know the consequences of offending the Golden Palace. The bald man's face was ferocious, like a devil. His body was full of killing intent that shot up into the sky. So domineering, so arrogant. A steady voice resounded from the void of space. Aren't you going to ask why I want to kill Huang Jinxing? I don't need to know. I only know that anyone who dares to kill the people of the Golden Palace will end up in a miserable state. The bald man's face was ferocious. As expected of jackals of the same tribe. You are all equally shameless and unreasonable. Lin Xian sneered. If that's the case, let's just call it the Shameless Palace. Brat, how dare you insult the Golden Palace? You are dead meat. The bald man's face darkened. He swore that he would capture the person inside and pull out his bones and bones. He would then refine his soul so that he would never be reincarnated. You are the ones who are courting death. Lin Xian snorted. The younger generation is unreasonable. You want to kill and rob. Now, the older generation is even more shameless. I don't care about the Golden Palace. As long as you dare to take a step into the palace, you will never be able to return. Lin Xian's voice was cold. It carried a monstrous killing intent that spread out in all directions. He was really angry. The other party was so arrogant and had surrounded him without any scruples. Did they really think that he was easy to bully? He would let these people know how miserable the consequences of bullying him were. In the void, the bald man roared and merged with the demonic beast under his feet. He quickly rushed toward the Crimson Palace. This time, he was going to kill the person inside personally. The bald man turned into a ray of light and rushed toward the Crimson Palace like a bolt of lightning. In the next moment, he disappeared into the Crimson Palace. Soon, he saw a young man in a blue shirt who was casually sitting there with a long sword on his back. It's a young brat? The bald man's heart trembled. He did not expect that the person who killed so many martial artists from the Golden Palace was only a young man. In the next moment, he suppressed the shock in his heart. So what if he was young? There was only one outcome for those who dared to kill the people from the Golden Palace, and that was death. Die, brat! The bald man stretched out his palm. A golden dragon attached to his arm and roared out. Dragon Claw! It was a top spiritual level cultivation skill that was said to be able to kill everything. It was extremely terrifying. In the void, the three flood dragons circled each other, roaring and roaring as they charged towards Lin Xian. Lin Xian snorted coldly, and a look of disdain appeared in his eyes. In the next moment, he stretched out his palm as well. Just a dragon. In front of a real dragon, it is nothing. Let me show you the real dragon claw. The crimson spiritual chi surged and quickly formed a huge dragon claw that slammed forward. In an instant, the void was torn apart. The terrifying crimson dragon claw was like a ferocious beast that suppressed the surroundings. The bald man's pupils shrank. He felt a strong sense of danger from Lin Xian. It was a feeling that he had not felt for many years. Impossible. He's just a young brat. How can he be a threat to me? Illusion, it must be an illusion. The bald man removed all distracting thoughts from his mind and urged the three golden dragons in the air to move. In the next moment, the golden dragons collided with the huge crimson dragon claw. Rumble! Crack! Crack! In an instant, the 3 golden dragons wailed and their bodies were torn into several pieces. What? This is impossible! The bulb man was shocked, and his eyelids twitched. He could not believe that Lin Xian could break his dragon claw in one move. Damn it, who is this brat? The bulb man was uneasy. He realized that Lin Xian was not as simple as he had imagined. Brat, who are you? Don't you think it's too late to ask now? Lin Xian sneered. Lin Xian wanted to kill him arrogantly and ruthlessly. Now that he was afraid, he remembered to ask about his identity. How shameless! Don't be so arrogant, the bald man said coldly. I don't care who you are. I will kill you today. With a long roar, light bloomed on his body and the shadow of a golden giant quickly condensed. This situation was exactly the same as when Huang Jinxing used his cultivation technique. However, with the bulb man using it now, the power was even stronger. In the void, golden light shone. It was incomparably majestic and exuded a terrifying aura. The golden giant seemed to have merged with the bulb man to form a real ancient giant. Chapter 830. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. He had just seen this cultivation technique in Huang Jinxing's storage ring. This cultivation technique was called Golden Giant Avatar. It used one's own spiritual energy, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to form a huge golden giant avatar to increase one's combat strength. When one cultivated it to a high level, one could completely merge with the golden giant avatar to form a real golden giant. One could also condense multiple golden giant avatars to besiege the enemy. It was extremely useful. Now, it seemed that the bulb man had used the first method to merge with the golden giant. Die, brat! With a roar, the bulb man was like a real giant. His body was tall and sturdy, shining with golden light. On his arms there were 2 dragons that were quickly coiling around, looking extremely ferocious. He threw out a punch. With a flash of golden light, a golden dragon flew out. It was like a real dragon. It let out a dragon's roar and quickly rushed towards Lin Xian. Golden giant avatar? Lin Xian sneered and quickly circulated his spiritual energy. He used the great dragon sword soul to quickly simulate this martial art. Boom! The void fluctuated and Lin Xian's body shone with a bloody light. In an instant, a huge bloody giant was formed. It roared to the sky and the sound shook the 9 heavens. Humph, it's just a form. You don't know how powerful the golden giant avatar is. When the bulb man saw that Lin Xian was using a similar move to him, he sneered. The core of martial arts was not the appearance, but the real inner cultivation method. Only by mastering the origin of martial arts could one bring out the full potential of martial arts. Lin Xian was just a nameless kid. How could he master the Golden Palace's unique skill? Therefore, the bulb man was disdainful of Lin Xian's actions. The bloody giant roared ferociously, and 2 bloody dragon heads condensed on its huge fists. It quickly punched forward. The 2 giants fought, and the scene was extremely terrifying. The bulb man had a look of disdain before, but after coming into contact with Lin Xian, he was terrified. Not only was Lin Xian's appearance similar to his, even his terrifying strength was the same. Compared to his golden giant, Lin Xian's bloody giant was even more terrifying. Impossible! How could he have such powerful combat strength? The bulb man was shocked, disbelief written all over his face. He had cultivated for dozens of years before he could fuse with the golden giant. However, the other party was actually not inferior to him in terms of strength. This was unacceptable to him. Ka ka ka! The blood-colored giant roared, suddenly erupting with a powerful battle prowess, tearing the golden giant in half from the middle. The bulb man didn't even have time to shout before he was torn apart along with the huge golden giant. His entire body was torn apart and turned into a bloody mist. Even if he died, he didn't believe that the other party could kill him so easily. Little did he know that the great dragon sword spirit that Lin Xian had mastered was the most powerful saint art in the world. The martial arts that were simulated with it were several times more powerful than the original martial arts. They were not on the same level at all. Without any surprise, the bald man was killed. Outside the palace, everyone held their breaths and waited anxiously. They only felt two terrifying auras erupting from the palace, as if they were going to tear the world apart. However, they did not know the specifics. Moreover, no one dared to enter. Everyone could only wait outside for the final result. However, before long, the terrifying aura within the palace disappeared. The blood-red palace became extremely calm, as if it was dead silent. What's the result? Could it be that Lin Xian was killed? Looking at the silent blood-red palace, the crowd couldn't help but wonder. Humph, do you even need to think about it? Of course that little thief was killed! Who can defeat our Golden Palace? The remaining Golden Palace martial artists sneered, full of confidence. Their leader, the bald man, was extremely powerful. Moreover, he could merge with the Golden Giant. His battle prowess was heaven-defying, and killing a third-level honorable martial artist was a piece of cake, let alone a nameless little thief. Just as everyone was discussing, a black shadow flew out from the entrance of the blood-red palace. It's out! Everyone exclaimed and looked over carefully. However, in the next moment, countless exclamations were heard. The Golden Palace martial artists trembled and froze on the spot. Impossible! This is absolutely impossible! The Golden Palace martial artists were shocked. Their expressions changed drastically as they shouted in disbelief. As for the surrounding martial artists, their eyelids were wide open, and their hearts were trembling. This was because the black shadow that came out was none other than a head. It was the bald man's head. The overbearing and arrogant Golden Palace martial artist had actually died. Moreover, the other party had only entered the blood-red palace for a short period of time. He had been killed in just a moment. This unforeseen event shocked everyone. The eyes of the head were filled with shock, fear, and unwillingness. It was a stark contrast to the overbearing and bloodthirsty bald man from before. In just an instant, the overbearing bald man had died. This shocked everyone, especially the Golden Palace martial artists. All of them were terrified as they looked at the blood-red palace in front of them with fear. They had originally come to kill the culprit, but now that their leader had died in advance, they didn't know what to do at that moment. In the next moment, the void fluctuated, and a huge blood-red giant appeared in the void. He roared into the sky and punched out with both fists. Two blood-red dragons roared out and instantly enveloped the remaining Golden Palace martial artists. Those martial artists didn't even have time to scream before they turned into pools of blood and merged with the blood-red palace. Lin Xian wasn't a bloodthirsty person, but these people had come to kill him. He would never show mercy to his enemies. In the next moment, the huge blood-red giant disappeared and the void returned to normal. Only the blood-red palace remained floating. From the beginning to the end, Lin Xian hadn't come out of the palace. His powerful and fierce means had shocked everyone. However, there were also people who were worried because the Golden Palace was undoubtedly powerful. This time, they should have come from one of the 18 cities, the Huge Axe City. This city was the closest to the heaven-seeking city, so they were the first to arrive. These people were probably only a part of the Huge Axe City's strength. The real terrifying main force was still behind. When that force arrived, it could definitely destroy everything. When that time came, Lin Xian would definitely not be able to withstand it. Yes, not only the Golden Palace, but other martial artists will also come. After all, the temptation of the Lone Star Sword is incomparably strong. In the blood-red palace, Lin Xian sat cross-legged. He was studying the storage ring of the bald man. Other than the Golden Giant avatar, there was also a martial art called the Flood Dragon Hand, which was also a type of capturing martial art. Lin Xian quickly browsed through it, and tried to use the Great Dragon Sword Soul. Soon, he mastered this martial art. After all, he didn't want to completely master it, but to comprehend it, and use it for reference. He used his own Great Dragon Sword Soul to form a different version of the Flood Dragon Hand. He was like a huge sponge, greedily absorbing all kinds of martial arts. Chapter 831. If it were other martial artists, they would definitely not be able to do this. After all, a person's energy was limited. It was impossible to learn so much. Moreover, there were conflicts between martial artists. But Lin Xian could. He possessed the great dragon sword soul and could use it as a foundation to simulate and evolve other martial arts. To him, this was not a difficult task. Apart from these two martial arts, the blood sword inheritance broke through again and reached the third level. And after reaching the third level, apart from the power being much greater than before, he also obtained a martial art, Blood Shadow Clone Kill. Using blood chi to condense a blood clone and use it for a sneak attack in battle, it could be said to be incomparably strange. He silently cultivated and digested this new martial art, entering a cultivation state. Outside, everyone was shocked because they discovered that the Blood Palace did not show any signs of disappearing. Instead, it became even more resplendent and demonic, like a demon king's palace, shining with a scarlet light. They did not know that this was the reason why Lin Xian's blood sword inheritance broke through to the third level. What they knew was that Lin Xian was too arrogant and conceited. After killing so many people from the Golden Palace, he actually did not have the slightest intention of leaving. Perhaps other than him, no one dared to do so. Time slowly flowed. Suddenly, the sky boiled again. The void trembled as if 10,000 beasts were galloping. This time, the fluctuations were more violent and intense than before. A huge spirit boat rapidly traversed the void. Its speed was very fast, and it instantly rushed in the direction of the Blood Palace. The spirit boat was golden all over, as if it was made of gold, emitting a dazzling light. On the body of the boat, there were two huge axes that crossed each other, forming a strange pattern. On the spirit boat, there were densely packed martial artists. All of them were surging with killing intent, making one's heart tremble. Golden Palace! It's the Golden Palace's people from Giant Axe City! Below, when the crowd saw the huge golden spirit boat, they immediately exclaimed. It seemed that the Golden Palace was really angry. They actually sent a battle spirit boat. Indeed, the death of Huang Jinxing and the bald man had finally angered the Golden Palace, so they sent a battle spirit boat and swore to capture the murderer. Countless people looked at the sky and swallowed their saliva, their eyes filled with horror. They knew that this time, Lin Xian was truly finished. Hundreds of martial artists stood on the gold spirit ship. Among them, the person at the front was a burly man with bronze skin. He was as mighty as an iron tower. On his back, he carried a huge golden battle axe, which was shining brightly. This burly man was the Vice City Lord of Great Axe City, Berserker. He was also the strongest leader on the spirit boat this time. This person's cultivation was at the peak of the second heaven honorable realm, and he could easily kill an ordinary third heaven honorable realm cultivator. Apart from the City Lord of Great Axe City, almost no one was his opponent. As for the powerful City Lord, it was said that he had already reached the third heavenly layer. However, it seemed that he did not come this time. Quan Zhan stood at the very front, looking at the blood-colored palace in the distance. His eyes, which were like bronze tombs, were filled with anger. As the Deputy City Lord of Great Axe City, he had never been as angry as he was today. His talented warriors and capable subordinates, as well as a group of warriors, had all been killed. This was a blatant provocation. No matter who it was, whoever killed the people of Golden Palace and Great Axe City would have to pay the price in blood. Like a huge golden mountain, the gold spirit ship carried a huge wave of air and quickly arrived in front of the blood-colored palace. "The person inside, come out and accept your death!" A terrifying voice rang out, carrying with it a towering rage. It was as if the god of thunder was punishing them, and it reverberated in all directions. However, the other party did not respond. No one walked out of the blood-colored palace, and it only quietly emitted a dazzling light. "Not coming out?" Quang Zhan was enraged. He sneered. "Don't think that you can escape from everything by hiding inside. I will make you come out on your knees obediently, and willingly send yourself to death. Then, he quickly ordered, prepare the gold shockwave and destroy the palace in front. Immediately, the subordinates behind him moved quickly. The surrounding people held their breaths and watched in silence. Their eyes were filled with fear. In the sky above, the huge gold spirit ship suddenly emitted a strong spiritual energy fluctuation. A huge cannon quickly formed and aimed at the blood-colored palace in front of them. In the next moment, the port of the cannon shone brightly. It quickly absorbed the surrounding spiritual energy and condensed into a round ball of light with a diameter of dozens of feet. On the ball of light, golden light shone and pulsated continuously, emitting a powerful destructive force. This force was too powerful. Just a trace of it was enough to make everyone tremble. In the next moment, the huge golden ball of light surged and formed a golden shockwave that shot forward. Boom! The void was instantly shattered, and endless spiritual energy was sucked dry. The golden light was like a pillar of heaven, and it quickly blasted towards the blood-colored palace. In the next moment, an earth-shattering sound rang out. Heaven and earth trembled, and the terrifying energy exploded. The void fell into chaos. Strong winds blew, and the dazzling light covered the entire sky. At this moment, it was as if the sun had exploded. The blazing light flashed, and everyone could not open their eyes because of it. There were even screams because some ancient martial art practitioners wanted to force themselves to look, but their eyes were pierced by the light. After a long time, the violent energy gradually disappeared. The dazzling light in the sky also dimmed and finally disappeared. Only then did everyone dare to open their eyes and look at the sky. Then, they sucked in a breath of cold air. They realized that the blood-colored palace in the sky had been pierced, and a huge hole had appeared. The entire palace had been completely pierced, and it was almost split in half. Everyone was shocked and speechless for a long time. The golden light pillar was too terrifying. It had destroyed the blood-colored palace with just one blow. Before this, no one had been able to hurt the blood-colored palace at all. I wonder if Lin Xian is injured? Yeah, I haven't seen him until now. Could he have been killed? Countless people were puzzled and kept guessing. What they did not know was that Lin Xian was not injured, but was comprehending a new martial art. Therefore, he did not attack for a while. In the sky, on the huge golden spirit ship, the people of Golden Palace looked at the destroyed blood-colored palace and sneered. Those who dared to offend the people of Golden Palace would definitely be ruthlessly smashed into meat paste. However, the leading golden man, Berserk Warrior, frowned slightly. Because with his perception, he naturally knew that the other party's aura was still there. He snorted coldly and was about to give another order. This time, he would definitely smash the other party into meat paste. However, at this moment, a huge shadow was cast in the sky. It was like a dark cloud that shrouded the surroundings. A terrifying and violent energy rushed over quickly. It was as if the Demon King had awakened, and it carried a gloomy and cold aura. Who dares to kill a disciple of the Yen family? Come out and die! A cold voice rang out. It was like a sharp sword that pierced through the void. Chapter 832. Hearing that, everyone was shocked and their eyelids twitched. The Yen family is here! This was definitely an earth-shattering event. Needless to say, the Yen family was here to kill Lin Xian. Two terrifying forces had arrived one after another. Even if Lin Xian had 3 heads and 6 arms, he would not be able to fight them. Hee, Lin Xian is dead this time. Chaos is coming. I wonder who will get the Lone Star Sword. Someone sighed. No one thought that Lin Xian would be able to leave alive because no one could escape unscathed under the attacks of the two forces. The huge black shadow was a demonic general rank demonic beast. It was 100 feet long and looked ferocious. On the back of the demonic general, there were countless figures looking down coldly. However, before Lin Xian could speak, the people on the golden boat were enraged. Who is it? How dare you stop above us? Get lost! The voice was terrifying. It was like the roar of the thunder god, tearing the clouds apart. The terrifying sound wave gathered and attacked the huge flying demonic beast. Boom! The huge flying demonic beast flapped its wings and formed two terrifying tornadoes. They collided with the sound wave attack and created an earth-shattering explosion. The void was annihilated and turbulence flowed in all directions, destroying everything. Everyone was shocked and gasped. They did not expect the people from the Golden Palace to attack. No wonder they were from the Golden Palace. They were too arrogant. They did not even put the Yen family in their eyes. It could not be helped. The giant Axe City was famous for being arrogant, especially that crazy warrior. He was unruly. How could he allow others to stop above him? He was already giving them face by not attacking immediately. Who dares to attack the Yen family? Aren't you afraid of being annihilated? A cold voice came from above. It was obvious that the people from the Yen family were furious. Yen family? Is that so? How dare you stop above the Golden Palace? I'll give you a chance. Get lost. Otherwise, don't blame us for killing you. Golden Palace! Hearing that, the martial artists from the Yen family fell silent. They did not expect the group of people to be the famous Golden Palace martial artists. However, so what if they were from the Golden Palace? The Yen family wasn't a coward. On the back of the demon general, the middle-aged man standing in front asked in a deep voice. So it's fellow Taoist from the Golden Palace. Which city are you from? Giant Axe City, mad warrior! An unruly voice sounded, as if it was looking down on everyone. Berserker! Huge Axe has become the deputy city lord. The middle-aged man's pupils shrank. He had never thought that the great Axe City's city lord would come here in person. He knew how powerful the other party was, but as a member of the Yen family, he would not lose face for the family. Mad Battle City Lord, we're all here to capture the same person. It can be said that we share a common enemy. Why should we fight each other and harm our harmony? Hurt the harmony? Who do you think you are to talk to me like that? Berserker was very arrogant, and did not put the middle-aged man in his eyes at all. Hearing this, the middle-aged man's face turned ugly. His eyes burned with anger, but he didn't dare to attack. Humph! If he's not qualified, then what about me? An old voice sounded. Then, a huge pressure gushed out and shrouded the area below. This pressure was so terrifying that it made everyone's heart tremble. Even the warriors of Huge Axe City on the gold spirit ship changed their faces. They looked up at the sky as if they were facing a great enemy. Humph! Open for me! Berserker roared. He waved his arm and slashed out a huge golden axe shadow that seemed to be able to split heaven and earth. Bang! A low sound rang out, and a strong turbulence filled the entire space. The surrounding warriors were frightened and kept retreating. They couldn't bear the impact of this power at all. In the next moment, the terrifying energy exploded, sending out a strong impact. Berserker took a step back and suddenly looked up, his eyes fixed on the sky. Although he didn't use his full strength in that attack, the person who could make him retreat was definitely not an ordinary warrior. Above, an old man in a Taoist robe appeared on the back of the huge beast. Although his hair was white, his skin was as smooth as a baby's, giving people a very strange feeling. Greetings, Guardian Elder! Seeing this old man, the warriors of the Yen family all bowed respectfully. Guardian Elder! In the distance, everyone was shocked. They didn't expect the Yen family to send a Guardian Elder. It seemed that they were determined to kill the other party this time. On the gold spirit ship, Berserker looked at the old figure, and his pupils shrank. He felt an aura that was not inferior to his own from the old man. Haha, Berserker City Lord, why are you so angry? Our enemy is the murderer in the Scarlet Palace. Now that the murderer hasn't even shown himself, we're going to be a joke if we fight first. I can catch the murderer, but your beast can't stay on top of me. Berserker's voice was cold. Facing the Guardian Elder, he was still fearless. This is the negligence of the Yen family. Don't worry, we'll leave now. The Guardian Elder smiled faintly. Then, he waved his sleeve and flew to the other side with the huge beast. Even though the Yen clan had moved the beasts away, they didn't sound friendly at all. The Protector Elder laughed and said again, Huge Axe City has been here for so long, but you still haven't caught the murderer. Why don't the Yen family do it? You're courting death. On the gold spirit ship, the martial artists of Huge Axe City were furious. They looked ahead with ferocious expressions. The group of people opposite them dared to say that they were useless. They couldn't stand it. Berserker's expression was also cold. There was a strange light in his bell-like eyes. Compared to those ordinary martial artists, he was thinking more. It should be known that they didn't come here just to kill the murderer. Their real goal was to get the Lone Star Sword. Whoever could kill the murderer first would get the Lone Star Sword in their hands and naturally have the advantage. This was something that none of the forces wanted to let go of. Now, the Guardian Elder's words clearly indicated that the Yen family wanted to fight with the Huge Axe City for the Lone Star Sword. Other things could be discussed, but this was something that they couldn't back down on. There's no need for the Yen family to do anything. The Huge Axe City can easily take down a thief. Berserker refused immediately. Then, he said to the people behind him, Prepare the spirit cannons and continue to attack. What are you talking about? That thief killed a genius of the Yen family. Of course, the Yen family should do it. The Guardian Elder of the Yen family didn't back down either. He waved his hand and quickly ordered the disciples of the family to prepare to attack as well. No one could remain calm in the face of a half-Earth rank treasure. Therefore, the two forces were ready to attack together. How arrogant! How overbearing! However, you seem to have forgotten to ask for my opinion? A faint voice rang out and spread clearly in all directions. Hearing this, everyone was shocked and looked up in disbelief. At this time, someone dared to tease the two forces. Did they have a death wish? Chapter 833. Humph! Kuang Zhan and the Yen family Guardian Elder looked gloomy as they looked at the Crimson Palace in front of them. They realized that the voice had come from the Crimson Palace. Sure enough, in the next moment, a figure slowly walked out from the entrance of the Crimson Palace. Lin Xian, it's him! He's not dead! Everyone exclaimed in shock. They did not expect that their attack had not hurt Lin Xian at all. Moreover, what shocked them even more was that Lin Xian had taken the initiative to show himself in such a dangerous situation. What is he trying to do? Is he not afraid of death? No one knew. At this moment, everyone was looking at that young figure. Lin Xian stood at the entrance of the Crimson Palace and looked around. Then, his face turned gloomy. He had been comprehending the newly acquired martial arts in the Crimson Palace, so he did not attack. However, that did not mean that he was not angry. The golden pillar of light from before had almost threatened his safety. Now, the two forces were discussing who he should belong to as if he was a commodity. They did not take him seriously at all. It was as if he was a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. However, was Lin Xian really a lamb? The martial artists from the giant Axe City and the Yen family laughed when they saw Lin Xian walk out. Boy, you know what's good for you. I'll give you a chance to surrender now. Perhaps I'll give you a quick death. The middle-aged man from the Yen family laughed coldly. On the other side, the martial artists from the giant Axe City also shouted coldly. Thief, how dare you kill someone from the Golden Palace? Come here and die! Both sides laughed sinisterly as they surrounded Lin Xian. What a nice way to put it. Revenge? Isn't that what you're here for? With that, Lin Xian held the Lone Star Sword in his hand. The Lone Star Sword! Everyone's eyes lit up when they saw the sword in Lin Xian's hand. Greed filled their eyes. The eyes of Kuang Zhan and the Yen family Guardian Elder shone brightly. As long as they killed the thief in front of them, the Lone Star Sword would be theirs. Brat, you're quite self-aware. The Yen family Guardian Elder laughed coldly. I'll give you a chance. Hand over the Lone Star Sword and I might let you live. You'd better give us the Lone Star Sword. Otherwise, I'll let you experience what it means to be dead, Kuang Zhan said coldly on the golden boat. You want the Lone Star Sword? It's simple, but there's one problem. There's only one Lone Star Sword. Who should I give it to? Yan Zhan 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 Zhan, Kuang Zhan. Don't trying to sow discord between us. Elder Zhang sneered. Brother Mad Warrior, why don't the two of us work together and kill this little bastard first, then we can talk about the Lone Star Sword. John. Berserker took a step forward, his eyes cold as he stared at the figure in front of him. John of them of John. The crowd below exclaimed. No one would be able to block the attacks of two peak second-level venerables. Even an ordinary third-level venerables would be killed. The Yen clan's protector elder sneered. Brat, I gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. How stupid! What's the point of wasting words with him? Just kill him! The berserker roared as well. He was like a giant, causing the void to tremble as he stepped on it. These two people were too strong. Even Lin Xian had a serious expression on his face. If it was before, he would not have been able to defeat these two people. However, not long ago, his blood sword inheritance had broken through to the third level, and his strength had greatly increased. Moreover, he had also mastered a new martial art, Blood Shadow Doppelganger Kill. If he could catch them off guard, he might be able to kill them. At this thought, Lin Xian gripped the Lone Star sword in his hand. This time, he had to treat it seriously. You dared to resist? You're courting death! Seeing Lin Xian's actions, the Yen family's law protector elder sneered. In his eyes, Lin Xian was like an ant. If such a person dared to fight with them, he had no chance of winning. With a cold snort, the Yen family's law protector elder waved his palm lightly. Suddenly, a purple ball of light appeared in the void. It carried with it a sinister and terrifying power as it rushed towards Lin Xian. Lin Xian's eyes sharpened. He quickly pulled out the Lone Star sword and gently slashed at the void. In the next moment, the terrifying purple ball of light in the void cracked in half. It was as easy as cutting tofu. Seeing this, the Yen family's elder's eyes shone with a terrifying light. As expected of a half-Earth class treasure, it was so sharp. He was too excited. The sharpness of the Lone Star sword was beyond his imagination. A casual slash could break his normal attack. If he could obtain it, his combat strength would definitely increase by several times. Thinking of this, the Yen family's elder's eyes were filled with greed. He roared and like a ghost, he quickly rushed towards Lin Xian. On the other side, Crazy Warrior also shouted coldly. His violent fist was mixed with unparalleled power as it rushed forward. Boom! With a punch, the void in front of him quickly cracked open. The spiritual chi was sucked dry in an instant. A vast and turbulent power instantly enveloped Lin Xian. This power was too terrifying. An ordinary second-level honorable realm would not be able to withstand this casual punch. Lin Xian's eyes flickered. The red lotus armor quickly appeared on his body. At the same time, he held the Lone Star sword in his hand and quickly slashed out countless sword chi. Clang! 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 The void trembled slightly. The entire sky seemed to be about to explode as a terrifying and vast energy swept out in all directions. At the same time, the Yen family's law protector elder also came in front of Lin Xian. He waved his purple ghost claw as if he wanted to tear Lin Xian apart. Lin Xian's expression was cold. He activated the red lotus armor to the maximum. A huge shadow of the red lotus armor formed on his body and blocked all the attacks. Bang! Bang! When the attacks collided with the red lotus armor, the shockwaves shook the sky and forced Lin Xian to retreat. However, he did not suffer any substantial damage. He can withstand it! The Yen family's law protector elder was shocked. He did not expect Lin Xian to have such a defense. What an unexpected surprise! I will capture you later and take your soul. I must get my hands on this defense technique. The Yen family's law protector elder sneered. He realized that Lin Xian was full of treasures. He could not let go of such a person. If you want the Lone Star sword, exchange it with your lives. Lin Xian snorted coldly. He quickly waved the Lone Star sword and slashed at the two of them. The sword chi, which was almost 100 feet long, was extremely sharp. It split the entire sky open. How terrifying! The surrounding people looked at the sky in shock. They were so far away, but they could not withstand the slightest bit of sword chi. It was as if they were about to be split open. One could imagine how terrifying a half-earth rank treasure was. However, Kuang Zhan and the Law Protector Elder were not to be outdone. Although the sword chi was terrifying, they still retaliated with all their might. Clang! Kuang Zhan pulled out the golden battle axe from his back and quickly swung it. Chapter 834. The battle axe shone with a golden light. It was as heavy as a mountain, causing the entire void to tremble. In the next moment, it struck the sword chi, creating a series of sparks. Terrifying divine power spread out in all directions. The golden battle axe was smooth and shone with a golden light. Inscriptions swam quickly on it, blocking the Lone Star sword chi. At the same time, the Yen family guardian elder's purple ghost claw slapped over. In an instant, the air around Lin Xian was torn apart. It was like a piece of cloth, torn beyond recognition. Boom! Lin Xian swung his fists to counter the attack. Red flames danced, forming a terrifying flaming fist to resist the purple ghost claw. Even so, he was still sent flying. The force was too strong, as expected of a peak level 2 martial artist. However, the moment he retreated, he quickly slashed out with his sword. A terrifying sword chi merged into the void, forming a killing move that slashed forward. This sword chi merged with the concept of wind. It was extremely strange. It instantly merged into the void and disappeared without a trace. When it reappeared, it was already in front of the Yen family guardian elder. It quickly slashed down. The Yen family guardian elder's pupils constricted. He was shocked. He did not expect this sword to be so strange. In a panic, he moved his body horizontally, leaving behind a purple afterimage. At the same time, he waved his sleeve, forming a purple shield in front of him. Boom! The two collided, creating an earth-shattering sound. The purple shield was extremely mysterious. It actually blocked most of the sword chi. However, Lin Xian's sword chi was too sharp. Furthermore, it was activated by a half-earth grade treasure. It could be said to be extremely powerful. Therefore, the remaining sword chi rushed out and left a terrifying wound on the Yen family guardian elder's body. Ah! The Yen family guardian elder screamed and quickly retreated hundreds of meters. He stared viciously at Lin Xian. He was not a body-tempering martial artist. Therefore, even though his cultivation was at the peak of level 2 supremacy, he could not block such a terrifying sword chi. In addition, the sword chi just now was too strange. Therefore, it directly injured him. Brat, you dare to hurt me? I'll make you wish you were dead! The Yen family's guardian elder had a ferocious look on his face. Like a demon king, he glared at Lin Xian. The surrounding martial artists trembled in disbelief. They never thought that Lin Xian would be able to injure the Yen family's guardian elder so quickly. The Yen family elder's face was ferocious as purple energy surrounded his body. In the next moment, his head full of white hair quickly turned purple, making him look incomparably demonic. Lin Xian let out a long whistle and quickly unleashed the great dragon sword soul. Facing two powerful opponents, he had no choice but to go all out. Especially the other person, whose strength was incomparably strong, causing him to be extremely wary. Boom! The skies trembled as the void tore apart. A gigantic golden axe light that was 100 feet long slashed down rapidly. This axe light was too terrifying, causing the ground below to crack. Countless buildings were turned into ashes and disappeared in the wind. Golden light flashed, invincible, and instantly arrived in front of Lin Xian. Die, brat! A terrifying and ferocious voice rang out. The golden axe light tore apart the sky. The terrifying power was like a vast ocean, incomparably turbulent. However, this shocking axe light was blocked by Lin Xian's Lone Star sword. An intense collision occurred in the void, and a dazzling screen of light flew in all directions like fireworks. Seeing that his attack did not hit, Berserker roared. Golden light flashed on his body, forming a huge golden giant. With the sky-splitting axe in his hand, he slashed forward. He slashed out 18 times in a row, and divine light flashed in the sky. Every attack was like a shocking lightning bolt, forming a terrifying scene that enveloped Lin Xian. At the same time, the Yan family elder rushed over once again. His head of purple hair was like a demon, and he looked extremely ferocious. His entire arm became thick, like 2 huge ghost claws, and he slapped down quickly. The terrifying power was vast. It was like 2 purple mountains that rampaged through the void, incomparably heavy. The attacks of the 2 were extremely terrifying. Even a third-rank honorable would not be able to resist. Lin Xian's eyes flashed. He had a battle plan in his mind, so he did not resist too much. Instead, he allowed the 2 huge attacks to hit him. Rumble! Blazing light flashed as the 2 attacks enveloped him. A shocking explosion occurred, and a terrifying light enveloped the entire sky. Lin Xian used an Earth-class movement technique and dodged quickly. At the same time, the red lotus armor on his body shone brightly, blocking most of the attacks. In the next moment, he used a spell to condense a blood-colored avatar and handed the Lone Star sword to it. He condensed a blood-colored slaughter sword and held it in his hand. Whoosh! In an instant, the blood-colored avatar disappeared into the void. Ha ha! Thief, let's see how you escape! The Yan family elder's hair was disheveled, and his face was ferocious. This attack was the combined attack of him and Berserker. That thief would definitely not be able to withstand it. The surrounding people were shocked and kept shaking their heads. Looking at this scene, Lin Xian would definitely not be able to survive. On the back of the huge demonic beast, the Yan family disciples sneered. Those who offended the Yan family would definitely not be able to escape death. Berserker held the giant axe with a serious expression. He did not let his guard down because even if Lin Xian died, the following battle would be even more terrifying. This was because it concerned the ownership of the Lone Star Sword. Brat, you shouldn't have offended my Yan clan! The guardian elder sneered and walked forward step by step. However, in the next moment, a blood-colored figure appeared beside him. With a flash of sword radiance, it quickly slashed down. What? The Yan family guardian elder's expression changed drastically and his pupils constricted. He did not expect someone else to attack. With a roar, he activated his spiritual energy and dodged quickly. The sword radiance made him shudder, and he did not dare to take it head-on. Even so, he was still one step too late. With a scream, the Yan family elder's entire right arm turned into a bloody mist and dissipated into the sky. Half of his body was torn apart, and almost split in half. After the successful attack, the blood-colored figure turned into a ray of light and quickly retreated. Kid, I'll kill you! The Yan family elder roared ferociously like an injured beast. He swore that he would torture Lin Xian to death. A terrifying claw covered the sky and quickly grabbed forward. He could see that the blood-colored radiance was the Lone Star Sword. He had to get the Lone Star Sword and torture that despicable thief to death. In the next moment, in the violent energy wave in front of him, a shocking blood-colored sword radiance lit up and quickly split everything apart. Lin Xian was like a sword. He used the illusory demon steps and grabbed the Lone Star Sword. Flying Star! Kill him while he's down! Since he had severely injured the Yan family guardian elder, Lin Xian did not plan to let him leave alive. Therefore, he used a powerful killing move right from the start. A cold light condensed in the sky. Lin Xian carried the Lone Star Sword and disappeared like a meteor. In the next moment, the Yan family elder screamed again. Half of his chest had a bloody hole. It was terrifying. If it were not for his powerful strength, he would have been dead by now. I'll kill you! Chapter 835. The elder of the Yan family roared. He did not expect that he would be severely injured in an instant. Moreover, the person who injured him was someone that he had always regarded as an aunt. At this moment, countless people were shocked and dumbfounded. They could not believe what was happening. The disciples of the Yen family cried out in fear. They did not expect that the guardian elder that they were so proud of would be severely injured and almost die. They could not accept this. "Thief, I will kill you!" Countless disciples of the Yen family roared. "Let's see who will kill who today!" Lin Xian sneered. He waved his sleeve and released the golden-feathered divine eagle. As soon as the golden-feathered divine eagle appeared, it roared into the sky and spread its wings, forming golden wings that were hundreds of feet long. Every feather was emitting a golden light. It was like sword light, incomparably sharp. In the next moment, countless rays of light shot into the sky and turned into divine swords that fell down. 108,000 swords. In an instant, countless rays of sword light whistled and enveloped the hundreds of disciples of the Yen family. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The sword light tore through the void. Countless Yen family martial artists screamed as they were pierced by the golden divine swords. Their blood dyed the sky red and their screams were like the cries of ghosts. Massacre! This was a naked massacre. The golden-feathered divine eagle was extremely powerful. Even a second-rank honorable was no match for it. Among the disciples of the Yen family, other than a few powerful honorables, the other ordinary martial artists were no match for it. Seeing those martial artists die, the guardian elder of the Yen family roared into the sky. His body emitted a terrifying aura like a demon as he let out a sharp cry. "Kid, I will kill you!" His eyes were filled with killing intent and unwillingness. "If you want to kill me, you should be prepared to be killed." Lin Xian's voice was cold. If he did not kill these people, he would be killed by them. Therefore, this battle must be ended with blood. The elder of the Yen family roared ferociously. However, he was powerless. At this moment, he was severely injured and was no match for Lin Xian. Therefore, he looked at Quang Zhan. "Quang Zhan, kill him!" The guardian elder of the Yen family shouted. "This bastard is too despicable. Not only did he kill the disciples of the Yen family, he also killed the geniuses of the Golden Palace. Such a person must be eliminated." Seeing Mad Warrior's silence, Yen Clan's first elder clenched his teeth and said, "As long as Brother Mad Warrior makes a move, I don't want the Lone Star Sword." "Humph, a piece of trash like you wants the Lone Star Sword?" Mad Warrior snorted and stared coldly at the Yen family protector elder. "What did you say?" Hearing the other party call him trash, the Yen clan's law protector elder flew into a rage. He had never been humiliated like this before, even if the other party was the deputy city lord of the Great Axe City. "Am I wrong? A second-type venerable one was severely injured by a little thief. How dare someone like you covet the Lone Star Sword? Hurry up and scram. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." "You!" The Yen clan elder was so angry that he was trembling. The wound that had been sealed opened again, and blood spurted out. "Good, good. My Yen clan will remember this enmity and will definitely return it in the future." The Yen clan's law protector elder's eyes were gloomy as he gritted his teeth and said, he knew that he could not stay any longer today. He had to leave quickly and ask the clan to send another master. "Are you threatening me?" Mad Warrior was furious. He snorted coldly and took a step forward. The golden axe in his hand quickly slashed out like a mountain, smashing towards the Yen clan's elder. The Yen clan's elder was shocked. He did not expect Mad Warrior to attack him. In an instant, his face was filled with fear and anger. He channeled all his remaining spiritual power, wanting to escape. However, the axe was too violent and sudden. It completely covered all directions, and he could not escape at all. Bang! A low sound was heard. The Yen clan's elder was hit by the heavenly axe. He immediately screamed and his body was split in half. "What?" Everyone gasped in shock. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Mad Warrior killed the Yen clan's law protector elder? This was too shocking. Was he not afraid of causing a war between the two clans? At this moment, the surviving warriors of the Yen clan were stunned when they saw this scene. They were so stunned that they even forgot to escape. This change was too sudden. Their law protector elder was killed, and the one who did it was Mad Warrior. Why? Why? The Yen clan's middle-aged man roared to the sky, filled with sorrow and confusion. Aren't you afraid that the Yen clan will start a war with the Giant Axe City? Let's start a war then! Do you think the Giant Axe City is afraid of the Yen clan? Mad Warrior sneered. You are too naive. Do you think that if I don't kill him, he won't kill me? In front of the Lone Star Sword, everyone is an enemy. Anyway, this old man is already crippled. It's good to get rid of him and have one less potential enemy. Isn't it better? As for the Yen clan, when I get the Lone Star Sword, do you think I will be afraid of you? Mad Warrior had thought of everything. This was not a reckless attack, but a meticulous plan. You! The middle-aged man was furious. The Yen clan will not let you go! Let's go! He waved his hand and wanted to leave with the remaining dozen people. You want to leave? Stay here! Mad Warrior roared and took a step forward. Golden light bloomed from his body and quickly condensed into a golden giant that was 100 feet tall. Then, the golden giant slapped down. The huge golden palm covered the sky and quickly enveloped the dozen Yen clan martial artists. No! I won't accept this! The middle-aged man roared to the sky, full of unwillingness. He did not expect the Giant Axe City to backstab him this time. Even the Yen clan's team was wiped out. The merciless giant hand fell and crushed the dozen Yen clan martial artists into a bloody mist. Everyone was shocked and dumbfounded. It was too shocking. They had not expected this scene at all. On the golden boat, the Giant Axe City martial artists looked cold. No matter what Mad Warrior did, they would obey him unconditionally. Lin Xian smiled disdainfully and said indifferently, What's there to be shocked about? It's just a dogfight. How dare you? How dare you insult our deputy city master? You are courting death. When the Giant Axe City martial artists heard Lin Xian's voice, they were furious and stared coldly at Lin Xian. Courting death? Lin Xian sneered. If I don't say it, will you let me go? Whether you say it or not, I won't let you go. Mad Warrior's voice was cold. However, you should know that there are many ways to die. One of them is to make you wish you were dead. So, keep your mouth shut. Otherwise, you will end up in a miserable state. Miserable state? Lin Xian sneered. Don't you think it's a bit of an idiot to say that? Back then, the two of you couldn't take me down. Now that one of you is dead, do you think you can take me down? I was just testing you. I didn't use my full strength. Mad Warrior said coldly. When I use my full strength, you won't be able to escape death. Really? I'm looking forward to it. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. The murderous aura around him was fierce, as if he would attack at any time. Chapter 836. At the same time, the Huang clan, Lim clan and others rushed over. This time, they were determined to kill Lin Xian. Soon, the entire sky became lively. Countless forces rushed over, crowding the sky so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Lin Xian, hand over the Lone Star Sword and I'll spare your life. The Lone Star Sword is not something you can take. Hand it over quickly and I'll spare your life. Countless people shouted coldly. Their target was the Lone Star Sword. In an instant, Lin Xian became the target of everyone's attention. At this moment, the sky trembled and another group of people rushed over. However, when the crowd saw these people, they were stunned for a moment. This group of people was small. There were only about 20 of them. However, they were extremely powerful and no one dared to stop them. Wherever they passed, the crowd would make way for them. Lin Xian furrowed his brows when he saw the newcomer. The Wanxiang auction. What are they doing here? Lin Xian was confused. He did not think that the Wanxiang auction would stand up for him at this time. One had to know that up until now, these people had been blinded by the flames of desire and would not stop at all. No matter how powerful the Wanxiang auction was, they could not stop so many forces at the same time. Moreover, Lin Xian did not believe that the Wanxiang auction would be so stupid as to offend so many forces for him. Therefore, the Wanxiang auction's appearance was very strange. More than 20 martial artists from the Wanxiang auction entered. The one in front was the beautiful lady in palace attire. Beside her was a middle-aged man in purple. This middle-aged man was the martial artist who had visited Lin Xian's courtyard previously. "Young hero Lin, how have you been? I didn't expect us to meet again so soon." The middle-aged man in purple chuckled. "According to the current situation, young hero Lin's situation does not seem to be very good. Have you thought about what I said?" Hearing this, the crowd was shocked and their expressions changed. The various forces looked at each other with serious expressions. Little did they know that Lin Xian was secretly in contact with the Wanxiang auction. The purple-clothed middle-aged man smiled again and said, "My conditions are still valid. As long as young hero Lin Xian joins us, the Vientiane auction house will guarantee your safety." "What? The Wanxiang auction actually wanted to protect Lin Xian? What's going on?" Countless people were shocked, not daring to believe this. One had to know that Lin Xian was currently the target of public criticism. He had offended more than one faction. It was unwise for the Wanxiang auction to make a move now. Even if Lin Xian was exceptionally talented, powerful, and a good martial arts seedling, it was not worth taking such a big risk. On the other hand, Lin Xian frowned slightly. There must be a reason for this abnormal situation. Since the Wanxiang auction house had put in so much effort, it would not be so easy for them to take him in. What exactly were they plotting? Lin Xian couldn't understand. Although his talent was unparalleled and his combat strength was extremely strong, the world was vast and there were countless geniuses. The Wanxiang auction house would not offend so many people for him. Therefore, if the other party simply wanted him to join them, Lin Xian didn't believe it at all. What was left was the most important item in his possession, the Lone Star sword. However, this item was originally auctioned off at the Wanxiang auction house. If the other party wanted it, they could have not auctioned it off and kept it for themselves. Therefore, Lin Xian couldn't figure out what the other party was plotting. "Kid, although those people look calm, their eyes are hiding a deep greed. They are definitely plotting something from you." The Crimson Dragon also transmitted his voice at this moment. He was an old monster who had lived for countless years. Naturally, he saw more things than Lin Xian. Although the other party appeared calm, the greed that came from the depths of their bodies couldn't escape the Crimson Dragon's eyes. Lin Xian nodded slightly, his heart becoming alert. Then, he laughed loudly and said, "If you are sincere, then let these people leave now. We can talk in private." Although the Wanxiang auction house was selfish, Lin Xian could use them to drive the remaining forces away. This way, his chances of escaping would be much higher. Lin Xian wanted to use the Wanxiang auction house to drive the remaining forces away. This way, his chances of escaping would be much higher. Hearing this, the purple-robed man's face froze and he frowned slightly. He didn't expect Lin Xian to make such an offer. This was clearly to sow discord between the Wanxiang auction house and the other forces. If they didn't get what they wanted, they would have already started a war with countless other forces. How could they do such a thing? At least, the purple-robed man couldn't make the decision. He took a deep breath and looked at the beautiful woman in front of him. The beautiful woman was called Shangguan Xian. She held a high position in the Wanxiang auction house and was also the commander of this operation. Hearing Lin Xian's words, she smiled faintly and said, "Why do we need to let these people leave? As long as young hero Lin comes with us, I guarantee that none of these people will dare to do anything to you. This wilderness is not the place to talk. Young hero Lin, why don't you come back to the Wanxiang auction house with us and we can discuss this in detail?" Hearing this, Lin Xian's face was calm, but his heart was shocked. This woman's words were even more targeted. It seemed like she really wanted Lin Xian to go back to the Wanxiang auction house with them. If this was any other time, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, at this critical moment, this was too abnormal. After all, Lin Xian was the target of countless people. Now, the Wanxiang auction house wanted to invite Lin Xian to join them. No matter how one looked at it, it seemed like they wanted to surround Lin Xian without shedding any blood. One had to know that the Wanxiang auction house was the headquarters of these people. They definitely had a strong military force. Lin Xian would be like a lamb in a tiger's den. There was no way he could come out alive. Not only was Lin Xian shocked, but so were the people from the other forces. They came here to capture Lin Xian, not to watch the Wanxiang auction house take him away. The Huang and Ling families didn't dare to say anything, but the giant axe city wasn't afraid of the Wanxiang auction house at all. Among them, Quang Zhan snorted and said coldly, "What is the meaning of this? Do you want to fight with us for the Lone Star Sword?" Hearing this, everyone was shocked again. They were all confused. Yes, the Wanxiang auction house took action at this critical moment. Was it really for the Lone Star Sword? But that shouldn't be the case. They were the ones who released the Lone Star Sword. Why would they take it back now? Seeing the doubts of the crowd, Shang Wanxian snorted coldly. The Wanxiang auction house's actions are not for you to tell us what to do. She was very strong. Even when faced with the doubts of so many forces, she wasn't afraid. "Young hero Lin, quickly make a decision. We can't stay here for long," Shang Wanxian said. Lin Xian took a deep breath. He knew that he had to make a decision now. He could either temporarily join forces with the Wanxiang auction house and leave this place, or immediately start a war. After thinking for a while, he decided to join forces with the Wanxiang auction house and see what they were planning. Chapter 837. However, after receiving the Crimson Dragon's warning, Lin Xian would not be so stupid as to directly approach the other party. He used the Blood Shadow Doppelganger art, then used the Heavens Changing spell to quickly form an identical doppelganger. Then, he pulled out the Star Scar sword and quickly wrapped it up, making it look like the Lone Star Sword. Lin Xian took the Lone Star Sword and used the Heavens Changing spell to carefully hide on the side. This move was extremely fast. Lin Xian used almost all of his strength to complete it. With the help of the Crimson Dragon, he successfully hid from everyone. His real body was hidden in the air, without any aura, as if it did not exist. Even a third-layer Venerable would not be able to discover it. As for the Blood Shadow Doppelganger, it slowly walked towards the Wanxiang auction. Lin Xian hid very well, and no one noticed anything strange. Instead, when the other parties saw that Lin Xian was approaching the auction, they all became anxious. The angriest party was the huge Axe City, especially Mad Warrior. He had finally killed a powerful opponent, the Yen family's Law Protector Elder, and wanted to take the Lone Star Sword for himself. However, he did not expect so many people to come. Moreover, what was even worse was that the Wanxiang auction wanted to take away his target. How could he tolerate this? At the same time, on the gold boat, a 30-something-year-old youth shouted coldly, "Leave the Lone Star Sword behind!" In the next moment, his body shot out like a ghost, quickly grabbing towards the front. A huge palm appeared, like a golden skeleton hand, quickly grabbing towards Lin Xian. Humph! On the Wanxiang auction side, the purple-robed middle-aged man snorted and also punched out. A bright light flashed and collided with the golden skeleton hand, creating a rumbling sound. Then, the two energies dissipated in the sky. "Sir, what are you trying to do by attacking our Wanxiang auction's guest?" The purple-robed middle-aged man said coldly. "What am I trying to do? Get lost!" Mad Warrior was furious. He took a step forward, and his aura surged like an ancient beast. Just his aura alone was enough to push back the purple-robed middle-aged man. The purple-robed middle-aged man retreated, cracking the void. His face was pale, and his eyes were filled with shock. Quang Zhan was extremely furious. He held the golden battle axe in his hand and swung it down. The terrifying axe light enveloped all the martial artists in the Wanxiang auction house. In an instant, the 20 or so people from the Wanxiang auction held their breaths as their scalps went numb. The other party's attacks were too terrifying, and they couldn't resist at all. Fortunately, they still had the woman in the palace dress. Shanghuan Xian coldly snorted. She raised her jade-like hands and quickly slapped out. This palm carried a very mysterious charm and a mysterious power, as it blocked the golden battle-axe. In the void, Lin Xian's real body was hidden. When he saw this scene, he immediately narrowed his eyes. He did not expect that the woman in the palace dress was also a peerless expert. It seemed like the Wanxiang auction's strength was not to be underestimated. After blocking the golden battle-axe with one strike, Shanghuan Xian's cold voice rang out. Although the Great Axe Prefecture is powerful, the Vientiane auction house is not afraid of you. If you continue to cause trouble, then don't blame us for being impolite. You can take him away, but you must leave the Lone Star Sword behind. Quang Zhan made a concession. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he did not want to start a war with the Wanxiang auction house. As for this, we can't make the decision. Of course, we have to ask young hero Lin. Shanghuan Xian smiled sweetly. Instantly, everyone's gaze turned towards Lin Xian again. At this moment, Lin Xian's clone had also arrived in front of the Wanxiang auction house. Seeing the figure in front of him, the purple-clothed middle-aged man's eyes flashed with greed, but he quickly hid it. Shanghuan Xian smiled and said, "Young hero Lin, don't worry. Your decision will definitely not be wrong." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly reached out with lightning speed. Her jade-like hands were like white lightning, extremely fast. She grabbed the drum-core sword on Lin Xian's back. Then, with a flick of her wrist, she snatched the Lone Star Sword. Ah! Shanghuan Xian laughed complacently as she let out a silver chime. The purple-clothed middle-aged man behind her, and the other Wanxiang auction house martial artists, also laughed heartily. They could easily get the Lone Star Sword, which others could not get even after trying so hard. There was nothing happier than this. This scene shocked everyone. Countless people were dumbfounded and their minds went blank. What kind of show is the Wanxiang auction house playing? Is their goal really the Lone Star Sword? You guys? Lin Xian's clone also pretended to be shocked and asked in shock. What are you doing? What are we doing? Shanghuan Xian smiled. Young hero, don't worry. I think the Lone Star Sword is very dangerous. Why don't you keep it with me for the time being? She played with the Lone Star Sword and said casually. She did not take Lin Xian seriously at all. Lin Xian, who was far away in the sky, laughed coldly in his heart. As expected, they are up to no good. They are eyeing the Lone Star Sword. Although he did not know why they would go back on their words and snatch the Lone Star Sword at this moment, Lin Xian had no doubt that the Wanxiang auction house had been blacklisted. If he had the chance, he would not hesitate to take action. At the same time, a cold smile appeared on his face. He was curious to see the expressions of the people at the Wanxiang auction house when they found out that the Lone Star Sword was fake. The expressions of the other factions changed greatly as they stared at Shanghuan Xian, or more accurately, the Lone Star Sword in her hand. The Wanxiang auction house's actions were too abnormal. If they wanted the Lone Star Sword, they would not have auctioned it. Why would they snatch it now? Are they just trying to earn 1 billion middle spiritual stones? The crowd could not understand. Although 1 billion middle spiritual stones was a huge sum, it was not enough for the Wanxiang auction house to risk their reputation to snatch it. The most important thing for an auction house was their reputation. Without a good reputation, they would not be able to do anything, let alone go back on their words and snatch something that had already been auctioned off. This was definitely a taboo for an auction house. Yet, the Wanxiang auction house was doing such a thing. Were they crazy? I thought you guys were doing this for the talent. It turns out that you guys are also after the Lone Star Sword. Crazy Warrior sneered. If that's the case, don't blame me for being merciless. He was infuriated. He was so close to obtaining the Lone Star Sword. However, it had now fallen into the hands of the people from the Wanxiang auction. It would be much more difficult to snatch it from him than it would be to snatch it from Lin Xian. Shanghuan Xian sneered when she saw the surrounding people staring at her. I know that this young hero Lin has a grudge against most of you. How about this? We'll take the Lone Star Sword. As for this young hero Lin, I'll leave him to you guys. If you have grievances, take revenge. If you have grievances, take revenge. Vent the anger in your hearts, okay? She was smiling, but her words were vicious. She did not care about Lin Xian's life at all. I'll kill him, but I'll get the item too. Chapter 838. Quang Zhan snorted coldly and took a step forward. Golden light shone from his body and quickly formed a 100-feet-tall golden giant. A terrifying aura covered the area, making it hard for the crowd to breathe. Shangguan Xian's face turned cold. She took a deep breath and said coldly, Quang Zhan, let me give you a piece of advice. Do you think the Lone Star Sword is something that only the Wanxiang auction wants? I advise you to stop now and stop interfering in this matter. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences. At that time, even the entire Golden Palace won't be able to bear it, let alone the giant Axe City. Shangguan Xian's cold voice resounded in the area. Hearing this, the crowd was shocked. Shangguan Xian's words sounded like a warning, but there was a lot of information in it. At least, it revealed that the Lone Star Sword wasn't something that the Wanxiang auction wanted. Instead, they seemed to have been ordered to take it by force. As for who could command the powerful Wanxiang auction, a name suddenly appeared in the crowd's mind. Could it be him? Thinking of that person, countless people gasped, and their bodies trembled. Even the surrounding forces were fearless. Quang Zhan frowned. He naturally guessed the force behind the Wanxiang auction. However, he couldn't care less now. He had to get the Lone Star Sword. He snorted coldly. His eyes were filled with arrogance and an aura that looked down on the world. The giant golden giant on his body held the golden battle axe and slashed down. Stubborn! Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Shangguan Xian snorted and quickly waved the Lone Star Sword in her hand, striking out a dazzling sword shadow. The sword she swept out, causing people's hearts to beat faster. It quickly collided with the golden battle axe. In an instant, countless swords she shattered and were split into two by the golden battle axe. What? This is impossible! Shangguan Xian's face changed drastically. She couldn't understand how the other party could break her sword. One should know that the sword in her hand was a half-earth rank treasure. She gritted her teeth and a trace of anger appeared on her face. She quickly waved her hand and the Lone Star Sword in her hand instantly enlarged into a terrifying giant sword that was 100 feet long. She waved the giant sword and slashed at the golden battle axe in the air. Die! She sneered. With the power of a half-earth rank treasure and her strength, this sword could definitely split the golden battle axe in half. Crack, crack, crack. The sound of metal tearing could be heard. However, what was broken was not the heavenly axe. Instead, it was the enormous solitary star sword. What? How is this possible? Shangguan Xian was stunned. Her face was filled with shock. She did not believe that the dignified solitary star sword, a half-earth rank treasure, would actually shatter like this. The others were also stupefied. They all stared blankly at the sky, not daring to believe it. The legendary half-earth step treasure was broken just like that. Could it be the next moment? An idea suddenly arose in his mind. No, this is not true! Shangguan Xian shook his head. However, before she could finish her thought, a terrifying murderous aura came from the left side of her body, as if it wanted to tear her apart. Humph! With a cold snort, Shangguan Xian's body moved horizontally. Like a ghost, he quickly disappeared from his original spot. Lin Xian, you're courting death! When Shangguan Xian saw that the one who launched the sneak attack was actually Lin Xian, he immediately flew into a rage. An ant-like existence actually dared to sneak attack her? He was really courting death. In the next moment, she threw out her palm and launched a terrifying attack. She wanted to kill Lin Xian with her palm. However, Lin Xian's doppelganger revealed a sinister smile. His body glowed with blood-red light, and a shocking blood-red murderous aura was released from his body, shrouding all the martial artists who were looking at the auction. Bang! An earth-shattering sound reverberated in all directions. Countless rays of blood-red light burst, and a terrifying explosion occurred. Terrifying energy swept in all directions, smashing a terrifying black hole in the void. The crowd was terrified and quickly retreated. At the same time, they were extremely shocked. The change in the scene was too strange. They could not understand it at all. The blood-red light dissipated and the sky became clear again. However, more than 10 people from the Vientiane auction had completely disappeared from the void, leaving not even ashes behind. The remaining few martial artists were also injured and they were all screaming in pain. Even the middle-aged man in the purple robe had one of his arms blown off. Blood flowed from his body and he looked extremely miserable. The only one who was not injured was Shang Guanxian. However, her face was extremely gloomy at the moment. Lin Xian, I will definitely kill you! If she still could not understand what had happened, then she could go and die. This was a trap set up by Lin Xian. That Lin Xian was not the real Lin Xian, and the Lone Star Sword was also fake. All of this was an illusion created by Lin Xian. To think that she, a peak second heaven martial highness and the person in charge of the Vientiane auction, would be fooled by a young brat. Thinking of this, her heart went crazy and she was filled with hatred. The funny thing was that she did not think that if they had not set up Lin Xian and wanted to take the Lone Star Sword, how would they have fallen into his trap? If they had not been so vicious and snatched the Lone Star Sword and left Lin Xian behind without caring about his death, why would Lin Xian attack them? Therefore, the Vientiane auction had only themselves to blame for all of this. The others were shocked too. They did not expect the powerful Vientiane auction to be set up by someone else. Quang Zhan burst out laughing, his eyes filled with disdain. The Vientiane auction really deserved it. If you had not set up such a trap, how would you have ended up like this? What you did is called reaping what you sowed. You only have yourself to blame. Quang Zhan burst out laughing. How satisfying! Although his target was also the Lone Star Sword, he still admired Lin Xian's actions. Humph! Shang Guanxian harumphed coldly. Her eyes were like lightning as she quickly scanned her surroundings. Following this, she clenched her teeth and said, Lin Xian, you better come out and hand over the Lone Star Sword. If not, you will not be able to survive. Is that so? Are you threatening me? A calm voice was heard. You can think of it that way. I advise you to be smart, or else you will end up in a miserable state. Lin Xian laughed, and his voice was heard once again. Many people are threatening me. Who do you think you are? His voice was filled with disdain and disdain. He did not think highly of the Vientiane auction at all. Hearing this, the crowd was shocked, then relieved. Indeed, the Lin Xian now was the arrogant and unruly young man they knew. It seemed like the alliance with the auction was only a temporary measure. Don't be so arrogant. You killed so many people from the Vientiane auction. I will tear you to pieces. Shang Guanxian's voice was cold. She waved her hand and shot out rays of light that spread in all directions. In an instant, the wind and clouds changed, and the terrifying shadow of a palm covered the entire sky. In order to kill Lin Xian, they must first find Lin Xian. The horrifying energy was vast and boundless. Like a tidal wave, it swept across the entire void rapidly. Don't waste your energy. You just want to find me, right? Lin Xian laughed coldly. The space rippled, and Lin Xian stepped out and revealed himself. I am right here. Do it if you can. Although he was laughing, his voice was unusually cold. Indeed, he had a strong desire to kill the Vientiane auction. They were so evil, trying to steal his Lone Star Sword and even trying to kill him. How could he let them go? Chapter 839. You still dare to come out? You're courting death. When Shang Guanxian saw Lin Xian, she immediately laughed sinisterly. As long as he appeared, she had 100 ways to make him suffer a fate worse than death. With a wave of her jade-like hand, Shang Guanxian quickly attacked. A huge hand covered the sky. It was as white as jade and surrounded by multicolored light, emitting a terrifying aura. The palm slammed down and enveloped the opponent. In an instant, the entire sky was enveloped and turned into chaos. Everyone exclaimed. The palm was too terrifying. It was as vast as the sky. Lin Xian sneered. He held the Lone Star sword in his hand and raised his combat strength to the extreme. He quickly swung his sword. A blood-red divine bird quickly flew out from the sword. On it, blood light flickered and blazing divine flames danced. Half of the sky was reflected red, as if it was a blood-red world. It carried a monstrous killing aura and a vast and terrifying flame aura. Boom! A terrifying sound resounded in all directions. The jade-like palm released a tsunami-like energy. The sky collapsed and the earth caved in, destroying everything. The divine bird formed by the sword she was also incomparably fierce. It waved its beast claws and tore the space apart. This was a terrifying collision. Pure white light filled the vast world. The two resonated and emitted a destructive aura, shocking the surrounding martial artists. Bam! Bam! Both of them retreated as fast as lightning. Every step they took caused the void to explode. They retreated a few hundred feet before they stabilized their bodies. However, Shangguan Xian's heart was filled with shock. The other party was a First Heaven Honorable Realm brat, but he was on par with her. Although the other party had a half-Earth rank artifact, she still couldn't accept it. One had to know that she was an existence that could kill a Third Heaven Honorable Realm. With a cold snort, Shangguan Xian quickly summoned her martial soul. This time, she was going to use all her strength to kill the other party. The void behind her fluctuated, revealing a piece of chaos. A jade-like palm stretched out from the chaos, emitting a pure white light. This is... Everyone below was shocked because the aura emitted by the palm was too terrifying. It made them tremble and even had the urge to kneel down. Even Quan Zhan's face was solemn. Mysterious jade hand, he didn't expect her to have such a martial soul. Quan Zhan's words were filled with fear. Brat, you should be proud that you made me use my martial spirit. Don't worry, after I get the Lone Star sword, I'll torture you to death. Like a demoness, she laughed sinisterly and then disappeared into thin air. With a flash of light, Shangguan Xian had already arrived before Lin Xian. His palm mercilessly slammed down, instantly shattering the void. Lin Xian, on the other hand, used the illusory demon steps and quickly dodged the attack. Then, he also activated the great dragon sword soul in his body. A deep dragon's roar sounded from within his body. Then, a shocking sword will erupted and swept through the 9 heavens. Lin Xian was like a reborn sword, swift and fierce to the extreme. With the Lone Star sword in his hand, he was like a god of death. Tens of thousands of sword rays burst forth from his body, and they were extremely dazzling. Kill! With a furious roar, Lin Xian also quickly attacked. He slashed out with his sword. The terrifying sword she was as black as ink, like an abyss. It carried with it the power of death. It was incomparably turbulent, and swept towards Shangguan Xian. Sword of Nirvana! Shangguan Xian frowned. Her pure white palm was like a jade mountain. It quickly descended, wanting to crush Lin Xian into a bloody mist. Behind her, the mysterious white palm was covered with strange patterns that flickered with a dazzling brilliance. Boom! The two collided. The terrifying energy was like a flood that surged into the sky, vast and mighty. The sword of Nirvana was incomparably black. It crazily devoured all the vitality and energy, wanting to completely destroy the mysterious jade hand. The mysterious jade hand was incomparably white, like white jade, emitting a terrifying energy. Shangguan Xian was very confident. Her martial spirit was indestructible and invincible. With a furious roar, she injected all her spirit energy into the mysterious jade hand. Then, the entire mysterious jade hand erupted with a dazzling light, like a bright moon. It quickly attacked and shattered the sword of Nirvana. Ha! My mysterious jade hand is incomparably profound. It's not something you can resist. Now die! Shang Guanxian laughed sinisterly. However, she had still underestimated the power of the Sword of Nirvana. Although the sword she was shattered, the power of Nirvana did not disappear. Instead, it formed a black mist that enveloped Shang Guanxian's body. Waves of power that seemed to come from hell crazily absorbed her vitality. What? What is this? Shang Guanxian was alarmed. Her expression changed drastically, and she was so scared that her beautiful face turned pale. She could clearly feel that the vitality and spirit energy in her body were rapidly draining away, like a withered flower that would soon wither. Her expression changed drastically. Like a frightened rabbit, she instantly retreated 100 feet. Then, she pushed her spirit energy with all her might and poured it into the mysterious jade hand. She struck out with a dazzling palm shadow, causing the entire sky to fall into chaos. Only then was she able to resist the power of death. From the beginning to the end, Lin Xian had only swung his sword once. However, Shang Guanxian had used countless methods and even used her martial spirit to break through it. The difference in strength was immediately distinguished. The surrounding people were shocked. They did not expect Lin Xian to be so powerful that he could even suppress Shang Guanxian. Shang Guanxian was even more furious. Her expression was unsettled. She knew that she had underestimated her opponent's strength this time. It seemed that her plan had to be changed. Being suppressed by Lin Xian, Shang Guanxian was furious. However, she did not immediately make a move. Instead, her eyes flickered as she pondered. Since she could not deal with the other party by force, she could only think of other ways. After all, her main goal was to obtain the Lone Star Sword. No matter what method she used, she had to get it. Taking a deep breath, Shang Guanxian tried her best to control her emotions and said in a deep voice, "Lin Xian, I think there is some misunderstanding between us. It was indeed my fault for attacking you earlier. I apologize to you here." Hearing this, everyone was shocked. Shang Guanxian actually apologized. Everyone could not believe it and suspected that there was something wrong with their ears. Lin Xian also frowned slightly and looked at the other party with a cold smile. Shang Guanxian continued, "My goal is very simple. I want to take back the Lone Star Sword. No matter what the price is, as long as you say it, I will definitely be able to do it." Seeing Lin Xian shake his head, she hurriedly said, "How about this? I will return the 1 billion spiritual stones that you used to buy the Lone Star Sword. How about that?" "Impossible!" Lin Xian shook his head and rejected her decisively. "Then what if I pay double the price?" Shang Guanxian said. "This time, it was indeed our Wanxiang auction's recklessness. I will pay 2 billion spiritual stones as an apology and redeem the Lone Star Sword. What do you think? 2 billion!" Everyone was shocked. This price exceeded the price of the Lone Star Sword. Was the Wanxiang auction crazy? The martial artists from the surrounding forces were also suspicious. What was the other party trying to do? Lin Xian's pupils constricted. The other party was so determined to get the Lone Star Sword. Could it be that there was a secret about the Lone Star Sword that he did not know? Chapter 840. At the thought of this, his heart trembled. No matter what, he had obtained the Lone Star Sword from the auction. Regardless of whether there were secrets or not, he would not hand it over. "I have never heard of anyone redeeming an item that was auctioned off." Lin Xian shook his head and rejected. "If you want to fight, I'll be there any time. If you don't want to fight, then get lost." Seeing Lin Xian reject her twice, Shang Guanxian's face turned cold. She was so angry that she panted and her body trembled. "Lin Xian, if you know what's good for you, you'd better hand over the Lone Star Sword. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences. Get lost or die." Lin Xian's reply was simple. "Just you wait. Soon you'll regret the decision you made today," Shang Guanxian said coldly. She then turned around and left with the remaining martial artists. "She's leaving just like that?" The crowd was shocked. They did not expect the powerful Shang Guanxian to leave at this moment. The martial artists from the major forces looked at each other. However, they were not idiots. They had already guessed that there was something wrong with the Lone Star Sword. There might be some hidden secrets behind it. Otherwise, the Vientiane auction would not have taken such a strange action. However, although the crowd was burning with passion, no one dared to act rashly. They had seen how powerful Lin Xian was. He could even suppress Shang Guanxian. He was definitely terrifying. Other than a few experts, no one could capture him. "Do you want to fight?" Lin Xian looked around and said arrogantly. Many people felt their hearts tremble when they were swept by his sharp gaze. They felt as though they were being pierced. Especially the martial artists from the Huang and Ling families, they did not even dare to breathe loudly. Lin Xian's strength had long exceeded their control. Of course, there were some who were not convinced. Although they could not defeat Lin Xian in a one-on-one fight, they could definitely kill him if they worked together. Therefore, some people secretly joined forces with two other forces and attacked together. In the end, dozens of martial artists were slashed into a bloody mist by Lin Xian's sword. No one survived. This scene made the others not dare to attack anymore. Mad War and the rest looked coldly at Lin Xian. At this moment, an arrogant laugh was heard. "Ha ha ha, others may be afraid of you, but I'm not. Kid, hand over the Lone Star Sword and I'll let you live." This voice was extremely arrogant, as if he didn't put anyone in his eyes. Everyone was shocked as they gazed towards the sky. They wanted to know who it was that dared to boast like this. In the void, countless maple leaves drifted down, bringing with them a desolate mood. 6 women walked through the void with swords in their arms. In the middle of them was a red palanquin. That voice sounded from the palanquin. "Hong Wuji!" Seeing this scene, someone exclaimed. They had long heard of Hong Wuji's name, and many of them had seen this domineering new year in Windy City. Who would have thought that even Hong Wuji was going to make a move? He was also a peerless genius. His combat strength was probably not inferior to Lin Xian's. Everyone was discussing and looking forward to it. With a flash of light, Hong Wuji stood in the void, looking down at Lin Xian. "Brat, hand over the Lone Star Sword and I'll spare your life." "You want me to hand over my sword? Speak with your abilities." Lin Xian's gaze was firm as sword chi surrounded his body. "Stubborn." Hong Wuji snorted coldly as he quickly drew out a sword. Stepping through the void, he slowly walked towards Lin Xian. With every step he took, the sword chi on his body became stronger. The sharp sword intent also became stronger. In the end, there were 6 streaks of sword chi beside him that connected the heavens and the earth like pillars, emitting a terrifying aura. Everyone was shocked as they held their breaths. Their bodies trembled uncontrollably, and their eyes were filled with horror. This was definitely an incredible young man. With just the 6 streaks of sword chi, he had already surpassed most second-level honorables. This kind of technique was rare in the world. Another terrifying genius. I wonder who's stronger between him and Lin Xian. Everyone was discussing. "Brat, I'll give you one last chance. Hand over the Lone Star Sword and I'll spare your life." Hong Wuji's body was surrounded by sword chi as if he was a sword god. "The Lone Star Sword is in my hands. If you have the ability, come and get it yourself." Lin Xian held the Lone Star Sword in his hand as a sharp sword light also bloomed from his body. It was like a cold wind that swept through the 9 heavens. The 2 streaks of sword chi collided, and the entire void crackled as if it could not withstand it, and would split open at any time. In the next instant, both of them slashed out with their swords. Terrifying sword chi surged and finally collided with a dazzling light. Then, Hong Wuji's sword chi shattered as it could not withstand it at all. "Damn it!" Hong Wuji's eyes narrowed as his face darkened. He waved his arm and quickly slashed out several streaks of sword chi that connected into a sword net. Only then did he manage to block his opponent's sword chi. "You dare to be arrogant with such little ability?" Lin Xian sneered disdainfully. "Humph, don't be so smug. You're just taking advantage of the Lone Star Sword's light." Hong Wuji's voice was cold. "Without the Lone Star Sword, you're nothing." Behind him, The 6 maidservants were also mocking him. It's just a half-Earth class artifact. Anyone who gets it will have unparalleled combat strength. If my young master gets the Lone Star Sword, he can kill you with one slash. Hongwuji said in a deep voice. Kid, do you dare to fight without the Lone Star Sword? If I lose, I'll turn around and leave immediately. I'll never think about the Lone Star Sword again. If you lose, you have to give the Lone Star Sword to me. How about it? Hearing this, everyone was shocked. It seemed that Hongwuji could not defeat Lin Xian, who had the Lone Star Sword. That was why he came up with this move. However, they were also looking forward to seeing who would be stronger if they did not use the half-Earth class artifact. They knew that it was impossible. Lin Xian had the absolute advantage, so how could he give up? Humph, coward. He definitely won't dare to give up the Lone Star Sword to fight with my young master. Of course. Without the Lone Star Sword, he's just a piece of trash. How can he defeat our young master? The 6 maidservants mocked him coldly. Hearing these words, Lin Xian smiled. You don't have to provoke me. Since you want to fight, I'll do as you wish. After saying that, he put the Lone Star Sword back into the scabbard on his back. He tapped his storage ring, and the Wind Shadow Sword appeared in his hand. What? Lin Xian really gave up the Lone Star Sword? Everyone was shocked. They did not expect Lin Xian to agree to Hongwuji's request. Isn't this guy a little too confident? Not necessarily. Even without the Lone Star Sword, Lin Xian is still very powerful. Don't forget that he has killed many second-level venerables before. Everyone had different opinions and quickly discussed. Upon seeing this, Hongwuji burst out laughing. Well done, kid, you are indeed courageous. However, without the Lone Star Sword, you'll definitely lose. He let out a long roar, and the sword light on his body shone brightly. Sword chi flickered and surged out like a torrential flood. The Autumn Water Sword was one of Hongwuji's 6 treasured swords. At this moment, sword chi gushed out like the Milky Way, and it was extremely sharp. Chapter 841. Lin Xian looked calm as he waved his long sword. Streaks of fiery red sword chi surged out and turned into 3 golden crows that flew quickly. Flames surrounded the golden crows, and the terrifying heat distorted the void. The 3 golden crows streaked across the sky and rushed toward each other. Before the sword chi arrived, the terrifying heat had already evaporated the river. Rumble! The 2 swords clashed, and the entire sky trembled. Countless streaks of sword chi swept across the sky and wreaked havoc. Hongwuji's sword chi was of the water attribute, while Lin Xian's sword chi was of the fire attribute. As the 2 opposing forces clashed, an intense confrontation took place. It was a competition of strength. Whoever was stronger would be able to suppress the other. The flood surged into the sky, and the flames surged. The 2 forces shone brightly and devoured each other. The crowd was horrified. Such a battle was too terrifying. Even a second-layer honorable realm cultivator would be killed and turned into a bloody mist. It was indeed a battle between geniuses. Although the 2 of them were young, their combat strength had already surpassed that of countless seniors. Boom! The 3 golden crows shone brightly like 3 suns and evaporated the river. Then, they flapped their wings and shattered the terrifying sword chi. Hongwuji frowned and took a step back. How is this possible? His face turned ugly. His opponent's sword technique had surpassed his. Now that Lin Xian had put away his Lone Star Sword and was using a sword of the same grade as his, which meant that there was no external enhancement. However, he still could not withstand Lin Xian's sword chi. What did this mean? This meant that he could not defeat Lin Xian. At the thought of this, his face turned ugly. He let out a long roar, and the 6 swords behind him rushed out and floated around him. Behind him, the void floated and a huge maple tree appeared. Its branches swayed like an arm and grabbed the 6 swords. Kid, let's decide this in one move! Hongwuji was furious. He summoned his martial soul and was ready to attack with all his might. If he could not defeat Lin Xian, he would lose face. The martial soul of the maple tree was like a tree man. It held the 6 swords and waved them quickly. Streaks of dazzling sword chi swept in all directions, forming a sword curtain that shrouded Lin Xian. Brat, release your martial spirit or die. To deal with you, I don't need to use my martial spirit. Lin Xian coldly snorted and pushed the great dragon sword spirit with all his strength. A terrifying sword chi surrounded his body. You're courting death, Hong Wuji sneered. He had already unleashed his full power. His power could even threaten a third heaven-venerated realm cultivator, but his opponent still hadn't summoned his martial soul. This was obviously an act of overconfidence and courting death. Since that was the case, he would make use of this opportunity to kill the other party and obtain the Lone Star Sword. As he thought of this, Hong Wuji tried even harder to activate his martial soul. Boundless sword chi joined together as a terrifying sword radiance hovered in the void, covering the heavens and the earth. He dares to be arrogant in front of my young master? That brat is dead meat. That's right. At this juncture, he still hasn't summoned his martial spirit. What an idiot. It's better for him to die. Humph, he doesn't deserve the Lone Star Sword. The 6 Maids of Red Leaves Valley sneered. The surrounding martial artists were also shocked. They couldn't understand where Lin Xian's confidence came from. How dare he not summon his martial spirit? Lin Xian's gaze was resolute as his black hair fluttered in the wind. Sword radiance flickered in his eyes as he roared and slashed out with his sword. Although he didn't summon the great dragon sword spirit, the sword contained the power of the great dragon sword spirit and was extremely sharp. Blood-colored sword chi circled around and formed a blood dragon. It roared ferociously and charged forward. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out, and the heavens and earth lost their color. In the next instant, the sword screen formed by the 6 sword chi collided with the blood dragon. Boom! In an instant, the sword screen shattered and the blood dragon roared as it charged out. How is this possible? This is impossible! Hong Wuji retreated, his face full of shock as he spat out blood. He didn't expect his opponent to be able to break through his attack. What was worse was that his opponent didn't summon his martial spirit. This meant that the difference in strength between the two of them was huge. Otherwise, such a situation wouldn't have happened. Damn it! I don't believe it! Hong Wuji roared at the sky, his eyes full of indignation. He was powerful and arrogant. He had never taken anyone of the same age as him seriously. When he fought with Lin Xian previously, he thought that Lin Xian was only able to contend with him because of the Lone Star Sword. But now, Lin Xian had put away the Lone Star Sword and was able to suppress him with his own strength. This meant that Lin Xian's strength was above his. But he couldn't accept it. When he thought of what he had said, he felt his face burning. A slap to the face. This was a naked slap to the face. The 6 maidservants were also stunned. They were stunned and stood rooted to the ground. Their young master had been defeated, and he had been utterly defeated. The 6 maidservants couldn't believe it. Lin Xian was too powerful. He was definitely a top genius among the younger generation. The crowd exclaimed. It was as if they had witnessed the rise of a peerless genius. Impossible. Go to hell! Hong Wuji's hair was disheveled and he was in a sorry state. A ruthless look appeared in his eyes as he waved his sleeves and shot out 3 rays of scarlet light. They were 3 maple leaves that were as thin as cicadas' wings. They were scarlet and contained a terrifying power. Oh no, that was a forbidden weapon! If it exploded, it could kill a 3rd heaven honorable. Someone exclaimed and quickly fled. When the news spread, the entire sky was in chaos. Countless martial artists fled into the distance like locusts. The 3 maple leaves were like the hidden weapons of the Grim Reaper as they shot toward Lin Xian. Go to hell! Hong Wuji's face was hideous. He couldn't accept that someone was stronger than him. On the other hand, Lin Xian's face was gloomy. His opponent was so vicious that he wanted to kill him. Since that was the case, he wouldn't hold back. Lin Xian's body swayed. He used his Earth-class movement technique, illusory demon steps. His speed was so fast that even a third heaven honorable couldn't catch up with him. His body flashed like a bolt of lightning and instantly dodged the attack range of the 3 forbidden weapons. Then, he slashed out one of them. The blood-red sword light turned into a dragon and rushed toward Hongwuji. Hongwuji's face changed drastically as he screamed in horror. Fear appeared in his eyes. Death, this was the feeling of death. He had never experienced such a feeling before, but now, he finally knew what fear was, and what fear was. The young man in front of him was too terrifying. He was like his nemesis. Not only did he dodge the attack of the 3 forbidden weapons, he even had the ability to kill him. No! I don't want to die! Hongwuji tried his best to resist, but he couldn't withstand Lin Xian's sword chi. He could only let out a sorrowful cry and turn around to escape. In the next moment, the terrifying sword light had already enveloped him. Young master! The 6 maidservants screamed. They couldn't imagine how furious Red Leaf Valley would be if Hongwuji died. Clang! The void suddenly trembled violently. A sword light was like a shooting star and instantly knocked the blood-red dragon away. Then, the sword light flashed and enveloped Hongwuji, taking him with it and disappearing into the sky. Chapter 842. What? He was saved? Everyone was shocked. They thought that Hongwuji was dead for sure, but they didn't expect that a mysterious person would save him at the last moment. Lin Xian was also surprised. He squinted his eyes and looked at the sky, his expression flickering. However, he didn't care. So what if Hongwuji survived? He wasn't his match anyway. However, the mysterious person who saved him at the last moment did make him wary. He seemed to be at least a 3rd level venerable. Hongwuji went from being arrogant to being defeated in a short period of time. The whole process happened very quickly. The proud son of heaven who had been the focus of everyone's attention had been defeated in an instant. Moreover, he had been defeated by Lin Xian. Suddenly, the scene became silent. Countless warriors looked at Lin Xian, their bodies trembling. At this time, Lin Xian also received a message from Yu Fei. Brother Xian, we've found the whereabouts of the Phoenix Blood Scarlet Gold. It was auctioned off by the Huang family's great elder. Moreover, I heard that the Huang family's great elder wants to use this Phoenix Blood Scarlet Gold to create a special inner armor. He hasn't found a blacksmith yet, so he won't make a move for a while. Huang family! Lin Xian frowned and stared at the sky. That was where the Huang family's forces were. However, it wasn't convenient for him to make a move now. It seemed that he could only think of a way. However, he was relieved that the other party wouldn't use this precious metal in a short period of time. Since the whereabouts of the Phoenix Blood Scarlet Gold were known, Lin Xian had no reason to stay. He had to return to the academy to prepare and come back to snatch the Phoenix Blood Scarlet Gold. Anyway, he had a grudge with the Huang family, so there was no need to explain. Lin Xian turned into a meteor and moved quickly. He wanted to leave Windy City. Seeing Lin Xian move, the surrounding people panicked. Although they were shocked by Lin Xian's strength, it didn't mean that they wanted to let Lin Xian go. This was especially true for the people from the giant axe formation. Each and every one of them was glaring angrily. Crazy Warrior also roared and quickly condensed a 100-meter-tall golden giant. He waved his hand and grabbed forward. However, they had all underestimated Lin Xian's movement technique. His speed was even faster than that of a 3rd heaven venerable realm cultivator, so all of their attacks missed their target. As for Lin Xian, he turned into a sword light and quickly left the Seeking Wind City. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the defensive array set up by the various forces in Wenfeng City was broken. Lin Xian's figure flickered and disappeared into the horizon. After leaving Wenfeng City, Lin Xian summoned the golden-feathered divine eagle and let it fly while he sat cross-legged on its back and quickly recovered his strength. 2 hours later, he opened his eyes and adjusted his body to its peak state. At this time, the Crimson Dragon swam out and said to Lin Xian, Kid, let me take a look at the Lone Star Sword. Let me see if I can find out the secrets inside. Lin Xian nodded and pulled out the Lone Star Sword from his back and handed it over to the Crimson Dragon. Before this, he had never doubted the Lone Star Sword. However, the Wanxiang auction's actions were too strange. Everything showed that the Lone Star Sword was not as simple as it seemed on the surface. Therefore, the Crimson Dragon wanted to investigate it. With his insight, he should be able to find something strange. The Crimson Dragon extended his dragon claw and knocked on the Lone Star Sword, carefully studying it. Suddenly, he raised his dragon claw and his body trembled. He exclaimed in a low voice, "No way! What did you find?" Lin Xian asked. Seeing the Crimson Dragon's expression, he could not help but feel nervous. "This doesn't seem to be a half-Earth rank artifact." The Crimson Dragon took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. "Not a half-Earth rank artifact? Then what is it?" Lin Xian's face fell. "Don't tell me it's just an ordinary spiritual artifact. Then my 1 billion spiritual stones would have been wasted. What do you know?" The Crimson Dragon angrily rolled his eyes and snorted. "To be exact, this is not just a half-Earth rank artifact. Its value is 10 times higher than an ordinary half-Earth rank artifact." "Higher than a half-Earth rank artifact? What is that?" Lin Xian was shocked. He could not think of anything in this world that could be so precious. Could it be an Earth rank artifact? If there was anything more precious than a half-Earth rank artifact, it would be an Earth rank artifact. However, an Earth rank artifact was extremely rare and powerful. Every one of them had a mysterious power. This Lone Star Sword did not seem like one. "What you said is close, but not completely correct. This Lone Star Sword is indeed a fragment of an Earth rank artifact." "Fragment?" Lin Xian was puzzled. "Yes, a fragment. Most of the Earth rank artifacts in this world have disappeared. Only fragments are scattered in the world. This Lone Star Sword is made from the fragments of an Earth rank treasure. Its power definitely surpasses an ordinary half-Earth rank artifact. It can even be said that its value is immeasurable." The Crimson Dragon continued to explain. "Don't underestimate this fragment. It contains a mysterious power that countless martial artists want to obtain. I'm afraid that even a king's law would be tempted. After all, although it is a fragment, it still contains the law of inscriptions of an Earth rank artifact. That is the most precious item." Lin Xian took a deep breath. He was so shocked that he could not speak. He did not think that an Earth rank artifact fragment would be so precious, and that he would have such an item. No wonder the Wanxiang auction went back on their word and mercilessly attacked. They wanted more Lone Star Swords. They must have discovered the secret of the Lone Star Sword. In the absence of an Earth rank artifact, this item was the best item in the world. "Kid, you have 2 choices now. The first is to throw away the Lone Star Sword and leave this place. Otherwise, you might be hunted down by all the martial artists in the world. The second is to leave the Lone Star Sword behind and fully comprehend the Earth rank artifact fragment inside. However, you will become the enemy of all the martial artists in the world. You better think carefully," the Crimson Dragon said in a deep voice. Lin Xian also had a serious expression on his face. He knew that the Lone Star Sword was a hot potato. Although no one knew about it yet, he could not guarantee that the Wanxiang auction would not spread the news. If the news that the Lone Star Sword was an Earth rank artifact fragment got out, then he would really become the enemy of the entire world. However, he was also very excited. An Earth rank artifact fragment was a legendary item. He did not expect to be so close to it for the first time. "There is no need to think about it. I will not hand over the Lone Star Sword." Lin Xian's voice was firm. "Even if I become the enemy of the entire world, so what?" His eyes shone with confidence and an unyielding gaze. The Lone Star Sword was very important. Not only was it powerful, but it also contained an Earth rank artifact fragment. This was what he needed the most. He wanted to reach the pinnacle of martial arts. He had to grasp these items in his hands. Even if he had to become the enemy of the entire world, he would not hesitate. Moreover, as a martial artist, why would he be afraid of a battle? Although he felt an infinite amount of pressure, Lin Xian realized that the blood in his body was gradually boiling. Good kid, I was right about you. The Crimson Dragon was very satisfied with Lin Xian's answer. Let's go! Lin Xian did not delay any longer. He controlled the Divine Eagle and quickly set off towards Senma College. Chapter 843. In the blink of an eye, it had been 3 days since Lin Xian left Windy City. In these 3 days, various forces searched frantically, trying to find Lin Xian, but to no avail. Many people's faces turned ugly, their hearts filled with despair. Were they destined to miss out on a treasure like a half-Earth rank artifact? Moreover, what made them even more regretful was that they still didn't know which force Lin Xian belonged to. The Wanxiang auction house was furious when they heard that Lin Xian had left. Although they were the overlords of Windy City, they were powerless once they left the city. After all, the Blood Realm was huge with countless forces. It wasn't something that the Wanxiang auction house could control. However, even if they couldn't do it, the forces behind them could. Shang Wanxian didn't hesitate. She quickly reported to her superiors and asked for backup. She reported to her superiors and tried their best to track down Lin Xian. Soon, they received a report. Shang Wanxian carefully read the jade slip in her hand. Then, her pupils shrank, revealing a trace of surprise. Senma College! She took a deep breath, her expression solemn. She didn't expect Lin Xian to be a disciple of Senma College. Senma College was very famous in the Blood Realm. If Lin Xian hid in the college and didn't come out, it would be difficult for them to make a move. Many disciples of the Yan family were in Senma College. Why not let them scout first? Shang Wanxian made a decision and quickly gave the order. At the same time, she waited for the experts sent by her superiors to help her capture Lin Xian. Senma College. Spiritual energy floated around, like a fairyland. After a few days of rushing, Lin Xian finally returned. Brother Xian! Wang Li and the other members of the Dragon Sword Pavilion shouted excitedly when they saw Lin Xian return safely. Lin Xian met with these people for half a day. Then, he returned to his courtyard and went into seclusion to cultivate. This time, he went into seclusion to study the Lone Star Sword. However, after studying it for an entire day, he discovered that he was unable to sense the Earth-ranked weapon fragment within the Lone Star Sword. Boy, although you're very powerful right now, your cultivation is too low. If you want to sense the fragment, you must at least possess the strength of the third heavenly layer of Exalted. However, if you insist on wearing it, you might be able to sense it in advance. Wear it on my body! The corners of Lin Xian's mouth twitched when he heard this. This was a half-Earth rank treasured artifact. Moreover, it contained the secret of an Earth rank fragment. Now that he was asked to wear it, it was undoubtedly an action that deserved a beating. However, in order to be able to sense the Earth-grade weapon fragment as soon as possible, Lin Xian endured. Fine, I'll wear it! Lin Xian sheathed the Lone Star Sword on his back. He decided that he would not take it off no matter what. He put down the Lone Star Sword. Lin Xian took a deep breath. He sorted out the things he had obtained recently. Other than the Lone Star Sword, his greatest gain was the Lone Star Sword. It was the Blood Sword inheritance that had reached the 3rd level, and he had comprehended a clone technique. Other than that, he had also obtained a few storage rings. It was not a small gain. As for his cultivation, he had also reached the peak of 1st level Venerable. It would not be long before he broke through to 2nd level Venerable. At that time, his strength would increase greatly. After doing all this, Lin Xian opened the door and walked out of the courtyard. You're back. I heard that you had a great gain this time. A delicate voice sounded. Murong Qingqing stood not far away, looking at him with a smile. I heard that you bought a half-Earth rank treasured artifact? Murong Qingqing tilted her head and looked at Lin Xian. Soon, she noticed the blue ancient sword on Lin Xian's back. You're really showing off. You're carrying a half-Earth rank treasured artifact on your back just like that? Murong Qingqing was speechless. This kind of action was really asking for a beating. Although I don't know what you've experienced outside, there are countless monsters in this academy. If one of them saw it and snatched it away, I'm afraid you won't even have a place to cry. Lin Xian was speechless, and he scratched his head. He did not want to be so ostentatious, but in order to sense the earth rank fragment earlier, he had no choice but to do so. Why don't I cover it with a cloth? Forget it. That's even more annoying. Murong Qingqing covered her mouth and laughed. Then forget it. That's it. Lin Xian shrugged his shoulders. It's mine anyway. If anyone tries to take it away, I don't mind teaching them a lesson. Moreover, it's not the first time I've become public enemy number one. Back then, when I was with you, I also became public enemy number one. Aren't I still living well? Bah, who's with you? Murong Qingqing blushed and rolled her eyes at Lin Xian. No? I must have remembered wrongly. Lin Xian chuckled dryly and walked forward. You're really asking for a beating. Murong Qingqing followed behind him and said in a sweet voice, You have to be careful. I heard that Yan Qifeng is back. Yan Qifeng. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. Hearing this name, he should be Yan Qingyang's brother. Naturally, he would not forget the grudge between him and Dao Ling Association. It would not take long for them to come knocking on his door. Sigh, how troublesome. Lin Xian was helpless. He realized that the Yan clan was like an annoying fly that kept circling around him. However, if they dared to come looking for trouble, he would let them know the power of the Lone Star Sword. Lin Xian touched the ancient sword on his back as a cold smile appeared on his face. Not long after, the news of Lin Xian's return to the academy spread. Along with it was the news of the half-earth rank artifact. After all, Lin Xian had caused such a huge commotion in Windy City. It was impossible to hide it. What did you say? Lin Xian got a half-earth rank artifact. Heavens, how did he get such a rare treasure? What, he spent 1 billion spiritual stones to buy it. And he fought the entire Windy City. For a moment, Lin Xian and the half-earth rank artifact, the Lone Star Sword, became the topic of discussion. Countless people were envious and wanted to catch Lin Xian and asked him. There were even many people who had designs on the Lone Star Sword. Such a treasure was something that any martial artist would be moved by. Senma College, Dao Ling Association. Yan Qingyang's injuries had already healed. He listened to his subordinate's report with a gloomy face. Lin Xian, this guy, actually got lucky and got a half-earth rank artifact. How despicable! Yan Qingyang's eyes were filled with anger. His originally handsome face was now distorted beyond recognition. Jealousy, he was going crazy from jealousy. What ability did Lin Xian have to have so many good things? First, it was Murong Qingqing who was favored by the heavens. Then, he got a half-earth rank artifact. Every matter would make countless people jealous. Yan Qingyang gritted his teeth and roared in his heart. He felt that all these good things should be his. Not long after, when he heard some other news, he was so angry that he started to tremble. This was the news from his family that the Yan clan's disciples were killed in Windy City. Among them was a team of Yan clan's elites who were killed in Windy City because they killed Lin Xian. Damn thief, do you think my Yan clan has no one? Yan Qingyang roared in anger. Chapter 844. Brother, kill him. You must kill this kid. Avenge our Yan family's disciple. Yan Qingyang's eyes were red as he looked at a figure in front of him. It was also a young man with a burly figure and a handsome face. At this moment, he was standing in front with his hands behind his back. His expression was cold, and there was a piercing murderous aura around him. He nodded slightly, then said coldly, Lin Xian, Lone Star Sword. I'll let you know that there are some people you can't touch, and there are some things you can't take. This person was Yan Qingyang's brother, Yan Qifeng. He had received orders from his family to kill Lin Xian and take the Lone Star Sword. Let me see what you're capable of to cause such a huge commotion. He snorted coldly and walked outside. Senma College, Intermediate Spirit Tower. Lin Xian and Murong Qingqing walked side by side near the Intermediate Spirit Tower, which immediately attracted the attention of countless martial artists. They were not interested in Lin Xian, but the ancient blue sword on his back. Is that the Lone Star Sword? I can feel the cold aura on it from so far away. This guy is too arrogant. He actually dares to carry a half-Earth-rank treasure on his back. Someone snorted coldly, and his eyes were red with jealousy. With a beauty by his side and a treasure sword by his side, there was no doubt that Lin Xian had become the public enemy of many disciples in Senma College. Many pairs of rabbit-like eyes stared at Lin Xian with unfriendly expressions. However, no one dared to make a move. They had heard about what happened in Windy City. Although they did not see it, they were terrified just by hearing about it. To be able to bring the Lone Star Sword back safely from so many forces in Windy City was enough to show how powerful Lin Xian was. Lin Xian naturally saw the people around him as well, but he didn't care. These people were just talking, they didn't dare to actually do anything. However, the next moment, the crowd was in an uproar. It was as if they had discovered something shocking, and they dispersed like the tide. Lin Xian furrowed his brows and turned to look, only to see the crowd disperse and a group of people walk out from the gap. The person in the lead was a handsome young man with a stalwart figure. His gaze was steady, and his footwork was steady. Although he did not deliberately release his aura, it carried a powerful aura, causing the surrounding people to quietly shut their mouths. Seeing those people, Lin Xian's frown deepened. Although he didn't recognize the burly youth at the front, he did recognize the disciple beside him. Yan Qingyang. Lin Xian smiled when he saw the other party's ferocious expression. Needless to say, these people were all from the Tao Spirit Association, and the tall and sturdy young man at the front should be the legendary president of the Tao Spirit Association, Yan Qifeng. The surrounding martial artists also took a deep breath, their expressions becoming extremely rich. Yan Qifeng, I didn't expect him to come back. Everyone was shocked, and their eyes burned with passion. These people naturally wouldn't forget the battle between Lin Xian and Dao Ling Association. Back then, Yan Qingyang had provoked him and was even severely injured. I think Yan Qifeng will definitely not let Lin Xian off when he comes back this time. Lin Xian is dead for sure this time. Although he was powerful, Yan Qifeng was a third-level honorable, and the difference in level and realm could crush him to death. Yeah, maybe he won't be able to keep the Lone Star Sword then. If that's the case, then it'll be interesting. I really want to see what kind of expression Lin Xian will have when he's defeated. Yeah, this guy is too arrogant, running around with the Lone Star Sword. Does he really think that no one can stop him? These people were jealous of Lin Xian, so their words were filled with sarcasm and jealousy. Yan Qingyang sneered and looked at Lin Xian with a strong provocation in his eyes. However, Lin Xian ignored him. Instead, he looked at Yan Qifeng, who was at the front. This scene stunned Yan Qingyang. Then, his face turned ugly. How dare Lin Xian ignore him? How despicable! I'll let you be smug for a little longer. When my brother attacks, you'll know what it means to live a life worse than death. Yan Qingyang snorted in his heart. He knew that as long as his brother attacked, Lin Xian would definitely not be able to withstand it. By then, he would humiliate Lin Xian properly and return all the anger he had suffered previously. You're Lin Xian? At this moment, Yan Qingfeng's eyes flickered and he asked coldly. Who are you? Are you that trash's brother? Lin Xian said casually. Throughout this process, he casually glanced at Yan Qingyang and the disdain in his eyes was self-evident. You! Yan Qingyang was so angry that he vomited blood again. He gritted his teeth and growled. F***ck, I'll bear with this. I'll return it 100-fold later. Looks like you know who I am. In that case, I don't have to introduce myself. Yan Qingfeng's voice was cold. He looked at the Lone Star Sword on Lin Xian's back with a burning gaze. I'll give you a chance to redeem yourself. Kneel down and destroy your own cultivation. Hand over the Lone Star Sword obediently, and I'll give you a chance to live. The Yen family is really arrogant. Lin Xian sneered. Unfortunately, you're not the first to say that. In Wind-Seeking City, 3 disciples of the Yen family once said the same thing to me. In the end, they all died. Later on, there was an elite team of the Yen family led by a guardian elder. They also said the same thing to me, but they all died. I advise you to take back your words. Otherwise, you'll end up like them. What? The crowd was shocked. They did not expect Lin Xian to have already fought with the Yen family. From the sound of it, he had killed many Yen family martial artists. If that was true, Lin Xian was too scary. Opposite him, Yan Qingfeng's face darkened. His eyes flashed and his killing intent quickly gathered. Since you know the crime you've committed, that's great. Since you've done something, you must pay the price. And the price you have to pay is your life. His voice was cold, and the sound waves turned into sharp swords. It was as if the swords were going to pierce through Lin Xian. So arrogant, so domineering, Lin Xian sneered. But let me tell you, the people I killed all deserved to die. I killed the Yen family because they deserved to die. They were all greedy. They wanted to kill me and steal my Lone Star sword. If they weren't greedy and didn't provoke me, they wouldn't have been killed. Therefore, their deaths were entirely their own fault. As for you, if you're stubborn and want to steal the Lone Star sword, you'll end up like them. Humph, what a sharp tongue! No matter what you say, you won't be able to escape death. Yan Qingfeng's expression was cold. You're wrong. I'm just stating the truth. Since you want to fight, come at me. Lin Xian's eyes focused and the aura on his body kept rising. He was like a peerless divine sword that was recovering quickly. Of course, I'll fight, Yan Qifeng said coldly. But not today. 10 days later, we'll fight to the death in the life and death arena. I'll let you know that there's only one outcome for provoking the Yen family, and that's death. Chapter 845. The Ring of Life and Death. Everyone was shocked when they heard that. Their eyelids twitched. It seemed that Yan Qifeng was determined to kill Lin Xian. Otherwise, he would not have invited him to the Ring of Life and Death. One must know that the Immortal Martial Academy forbade students from killing each other. For example, in the battle between Lin Xian and Yan Qingyang, Lin Xian had only injured his opponent. He had not killed him. Therefore, if they were to fight now, Yan Qingyang could only defeat Lin Xian but not kill him. However, the Ring of Life and Death was different. It was a place that the college had set aside for students to settle their disputes. Fights were inevitable between martial artists. Especially these geniuses, they were arrogant and did not want to admit defeat. If a martial artist in the college had reached a point where he would fight to the death, he could apply for the Ring of Life and Death. Now Yan Qifeng had invited Lin Xian to a Ring of Life and Death. The Ring of Life and Death. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes when he heard that. He had heard of the Ring of Life and Death and knew the rules. Once they entered the Ring of Life and Death, only one of them could survive. It seemed that Yan Qifeng was determined to kill him. However, that was good too. The grudge between him and the Yan family was irreconcilable. Instead of leaving a scourge in the future, it was better to get rid of this genius now. Moreover, Yan Qifeng was ranked 30th on the Mystic Venerable leaderboard. If he could defeat Yan Qifeng, Lin Xian's ranking would jump from 70th to 30th. No matter how one looked at it, Lin Xian would benefit greatly. Therefore, he had no reason to refuse. 10 days later, the Ring of Life and Death will be as you wish. Lin Xian's voice was sonorous and his gaze was resolute. The crowd was shocked. Many people exclaimed. They did not expect Lin Xian to accept the Ring of Life and Death. Did he not know his opponent's strength? Yan Qifeng was a 3rd-level venerable. Moreover, he was not an ordinary 3rd-level venerable. He was a genius and a senior in Senmu College. He must have many trump cards in his hands. Such a person far surpassed those of the same level. Although Lin Xian was strong and could battle across realms, he could at most kill a second heaven venerable realm cultivator. Against a prodigy like Yan Qifeng, he was not enough. In fact, it was very likely that he would be killed instantly. Yan Qifeng smiled cruelly when he heard Lin Xian's reply. I advise you to enjoy your last moments, because in 10 days, I will definitely cut you down with my blade. He sneered, turned around, and left with the people of Daoling Association. Yan Qingyang looked at Lin Xian, his eyes full of mockery and disdain. Lin Xian actually dared to engage in a death match with his brother. He was really courting death. He couldn't wait to enjoy the scene of Lin Xian being killed 10 days later. Thinking of this, Yan Qingyang felt a twisted sense of pleasure. Are you confident? Murong Qingqing asked from the side. I'm not very sure, only about 30 to 40%. Lin Xian said. He knows that Yan Qifeng is definitely a very difficult opponent, so he's not arrogant. Only 30 to 40%? Murong Qingqing opened her eyes wide and complained. You actually dared to accept a death match with such a low success rate. I really don't know what you're thinking. Don't worry, there are still 10 days. Lin Xian smiled and comforted her. If I can break through to the second heaven venerable realm within 10 days, then my chances of winning will greatly increase. By then, there might be a miracle. Breakthrough? Murong Qingqing rolled her eyes at him. It seems that you've already thought about it. Why didn't you say so earlier? You made me worry for nothing. Oh, were you worried about me just now? Lin Xian suddenly smiled and said, To be able to get your concern, Goddess Murong, I have no regrets even if I die. He laughed and turned to walk toward the middle-level spirit gathering array. You! Humph! Who cares about you? Murong Qingqing's face was slightly red, and she stomped her feet in anger. It could be said that it was very urgent to break through to the second heaven venerable realm in 10 days, but Lin Xian had such confidence. The battle in Wind-Seeking City a few days ago had benefited him a lot. His spiritual energy value had already reached the peak of the first heaven venerable realm. As long as he was guided, he would be able to smoothly break through to the second heaven venerable realm. This was the benefit of fighting. This was also why countless warriors wanted to fight with their lives on the line. In battle, they could improve their skills and strengthen their martial skills. If they were lucky, they could even break through directly. And Lin Xian was fighting with the top experts. Every battle was very exciting and intense, so the speed of his breakthrough was far faster than his peers. 5 days later, Lin Xian successfully broke through, and the spiritual energy in his body almost doubled. Not only that, he felt that his relationship with the great dragon sword soul had become even closer. The kind of easy control made him unable to stop. It had to be said that the increase of his cultivation was extremely beneficial to him. Lin Xian estimated that his current strength had doubled compared to before. Now, Lin Xian was confident that he could easily defeat Shang Guanxian, Kuang Zhan, and the others. With his current strength, he would not feel any pressure against an ordinary third heaven venerable. Even if he were to face a genius warrior like Yan Qifeng, he was confident that he could win. Therefore, Lin Xian was not worried about the battle in 5 days. In the following days, Lin Xian began to consolidate his cultivation and comprehend other martial arts. Soon 10 days had passed. The entire Senmu College was in a frenzy of excitement. That was because today was the battle between Yan Qifeng and Lin Xian. This was not an ordinary battle. First of all, both of them were experts on the Mystic Venerable leaderboard. Between them, Yan Qifeng was more eye-catching. As a third heaven venerable and a genius warrior ranked 30th on the Mystic Venerable Society, he could be said to be very dazzling. Moreover, the battle between the two of them was not an ordinary battle. It was a battle of life and death. This kind of battle was extremely intense. Usually, the battle would only end when one side died. Senmu College rarely had this kind of battle in recent years. That was why everyone was so excited. Moreover, Lin Xian had a half-Earth-ranked treasure in his hands. This was one of the reasons why everyone was looking forward to it. One had to know that although everyone did not think that Lin Xian would win, if he used the Lone Star Sword, he could contend with Yan Qifeng for a while. However, it was almost impossible for him to turn the tables. At most, it would allow Lin Xian to hold on for a while longer. This analysis was made by the experts of the college. In their opinion, this was already very impressive. According to their estimates, if Lin Xian did not use the Lone Star Sword, he would not even be able to block one attack. On this day, the weather was clear and the wind was gentle. In Senmu College, countless disciples were running in one direction. Everyone had an excited expression on their faces. At this moment, in a corner of Senmu College, there was a huge arena. This arena was very old and was filled with an aura of vicissitudes. It was an ancient arena. It was said that this arena was built by a king. Venerables below the king realm could not destroy it at all. It was most suitable for extremely intense battles like life and death battles. Chapter 846. At this moment, the surroundings of the life and death ring were crowded with people. These people were all students of Senmu College. There were even a few elders and deacons who came to watch the battle. Of course, they were not just here to watch the battle. They had another purpose, which was that the life and death ring could only be activated by them. Not long after, a group of people walked over from afar. They were from Dao Ling Association. The person in the lead was dressed in a white robe. He had a handsome face and a burly figure. He was like a young god of war with a powerful aura. Yan Qifeng. When the crowd saw the white-robed figure, they immediately exclaimed. It was Yan Qifeng. Behind him were Yan Qingyang and the others from Dao Ling Association. Yan Qifeng led the crowd to the life and death ring. He bowed slightly to the elders. Then, he took a step forward and arrived at the ring like a bolt of lightning. He stood with his hands behind his back like a javelin. He closed his eyes and waited quietly. Other than the elders of the college, Yan Qifeng did not care about anyone else. He only had one goal today, which was to kill Lin Xian. Everyone was astonished and began to whisper to each other. Yan Qifeng was too confident. He did not take this battle seriously at all. In fact, this was very normal. Yan Qingfeng's cultivation was at the third heaven of the Venerable Realm. Moreover, he was a top expert ranked 30th on the Mystic Venerable leaderboard. Other than those ranked above him, he did not care about anyone else at all. Even those ranked higher than him would not be willing to fight with him unless they had no other choice. After all, at their level of cultivation, they would always have some trump cards. Those things were very deadly. Not long after Yan Qingfeng's arrival, many other martial artists walked over. A few of them were very eye-catching. One of them was a young man in a purple robe. This young man's face was pale as if he had not seen the sun for a long time. What was even more strange was that his eyes were purple. As his eyes moved, there was a demonic aura. Behind him was a group of powerful warriors from the college. Yi Yan! Seeing the purple figure, the crowd's hearts trembled. Their eyes were filled with shock. It was because the aura that this young man in a purple robe emitted was not weaker than Yan Qingfeng's at all. It was even stronger. Yi Yan was also a third heaven of the Venerable Realm genius. He was ranked 25th on the Mystic Venerable leaderboard. At the same time, he was also the leader of the Purple Robe Pavilion. Regardless of cultivation or power, he was above Yan Qifeng. Who would have thought that Yan Qingfeng's battle to the death would actually draw him here? Everyone exclaimed. At the same time that Yi Yan arrived, on the other side, a group of people were also rushing over. These people were dressed in blue and had the same pattern drawn on their bodies. It was an ice flower. The ice flower was blue and lifelike, emitting a cold aura. The leader of this group of people was a young girl wearing a blue dress. The young girl was beautiful and her eyes were clear, but her body carried a bone-piercing chill. With their arrival, the temperature of the entire space continued to drop, as if it had fallen into winter. "Snow Lady!" Everyone exclaimed again as they circulated their spiritual energy to resist the chill. Snow Lady, an ice-based warrior. She was extremely powerful and ranked 17th on the Mystic Sovereign leaderboard. Her eyes were cold as she scanned the surroundings. Then, she found a place and quietly waited for the battle to begin. In addition, another group of people had arrived. There were only 7 or 8 people in this group. However, no one dared to underestimate them because these people were too powerful. Each of them emitted a powerful aura that connected together. It was terrifying. The Gathering of Heroes was a very special organization. They had very few people, but every one of them was a powerhouse and could not be underestimated. The arrival of this group of people caused the entire space to fall into an extremely oppressive atmosphere. It could not be helped. These people's auras were too powerful. Although they did not deliberately release their auras, it was not something that ordinary warriors could withstand. One of them had an ordinary appearance, but his eyes were unusually sharp, like a demonic beast. It made one's heart tremble. Lone Wolf, ranked 33rd on the Mystic Sovereign leaderboard. His fighting style was extremely cruel, and very few people dared to provoke him. The arrival of Lone Wolf and the rest caused Yan Qifeng to open his eyes. He nodded at Lone Wolf and the rest as a form of greeting. Lone Wolf also grinned. Then, he looked around and scanned the surroundings. In the next moment, his face darkened. Humph! This Lin Xian is really arrogant. He actually made so many of us wait for him. Lone Wolf's voice was cold and his tone was filled with dissatisfaction. The crowd was silent, and did not dare to speak. It was obvious that Lone Wolf and Yan Qifeng were in cahoots. At that moment, they were obviously targeting Lin Xian. I came late because I wanted to give some people more time to live. Since you don't appreciate my kindness, then forget it. A faint voice resounded and lingered in the surroundings. It was clearly heard. Humph! What arrogance! Lone Wolf frowned and snorted coldly. On the fighting ring, Yan Qifeng suddenly opened his eyes and looked forward. His gaze was like a sharp sword that pierced through the void. The surrounding warriors were also shocked. They knew that Lin Xian had arrived. The crowd turned around and saw a group of warriors walking over from behind. The person at the front was Lin Xian. Today, Lin Xian wore a black shirt that fit him perfectly. On his back, he carried the Lone Star sword. His expression was calm and his footwork was steady. He was like a sword immortal, calm and confident. That aura was very special, making people feel that it was very mysterious. Beside him was Murong Qingqing, who was dressed in white. Her face was unparalleled and her temperament was extraordinary. She was like a fairy. Behind Lin Xian, there were hundreds of warriors. These people were naturally members of the Dragon Sword Pavilion. Today was the day of their boss's life and death battle. No one was left behind. More than 500 people gathered together, forming a terrifying aura. Their clothes were the same, and their footwork was the same. When they stepped on the ground, they emitted an indescribable rhythm, causing the entire ground to tremble. So strong! Was this Lin Xian's strength? The gods were shocked and could not believe it. They knew that Lin Xian had established the Dragon Sword Pavilion, but they had never thought that the Dragon Sword Pavilion would develop so quickly. Now that it had reached such a scale, it was truly shocking. When Lone Wolf saw the 500 people from the Dragon Sword Pavilion, his expression changed slightly. He snorted coldly and said, "Today is a life and death battle. No matter how many people you bring, it's useless. I brought these people not to help me fight, but to clean up the trash," Lin Xian said indifferently. "This fly is too annoying. Which one of you will chase him out?" Hearing this, everyone was shocked and their hearts trembled violently. Fly. Lin Xian actually called Lone Wolf a fly. Was he courting death? One had to know that Lone Wolf was a genius expert ranked 33rd. In addition to his violent fighting style, his combat strength was not weaker than Yan Qingfeng's. Lin Xian actually called such a person a fly. No one dared to imagine what kind of anger Lone Wolf would erupt. Sure enough, after hearing Lin Xian's words, Lone Wolf's face darkened, and a terrifying killing intent erupted from his body. "Kid, you'd better kneel down and kowtow to apologize." Otherwise, I guarantee that you won't have to go to the life and death arena. You'll die here. Lone Wolf's voice was cold, like a sharp blade that quickly cut through the void. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.